Hey everyone, Charlie Morgan here, and welcome to the premium version of Imperium Academy. Premium's designed to give you a stepping stone towards easy grow. It gives you things you need to get a few more clients and build up and scale to that 5 to 10K a month mark, so you can actually start getting into a position where you can move on to easy grow and really start scaling to the 20, 50, 60, 100K months. What we're going to be doing in this video in Apocalyptic Imperial Scale is walking you through how to scale and how to start thinking about growing a business and truly scaling up. Now, Apocalyptic Imperial Scale, the video in question here, was designed specifically for easy grow and acquisition Nirvana clients. So it's built with info business scale in mind. And what you might wonder as you go through this is, when I'm just trying to scale like a one-on-one coaching business, or I'm trying to scale a done for you agency, does this video apply? It absolutely does. But what you need to do as you watch this video is bear in mind that it's built for info business scale. It's built to show people, my clients, how to get to 8 figures, multi-7 figures, etc. And so what you're going to have to do with this video is extrapolate the lessons that will help you get to $1 million a month or 500K a month, and use them to get to 10K a month. These lessons and these ideas are incredibly more powerful, probably more powerful than most of the ideas in Imperium Academy free version combined. And so what I want you to do as you go through is, when you look at this video and you look at the metrics and you look at the terms, some of them might seem brand new to you, and that's normal, because what's about to happen is we need to bridge a big gap of knowledge in your brain here to get you to be able to scale. And so when you look at the numbers and when you look at the KPIs and stuff, just bear in mind that these are for info businesses, not agencies or one-on-one coaching businesses. But in order for you to get to 10K a month and scale to that sort of 6-figure level, if I teach you how to scale to 7 or 8 figures, you can extrapolate that knowledge and get to 6 figures with a lot more ease. So this is an advanced video. It's going to feel advanced. It's not going to feel like a beginner-friendly sort of tutorial that you might have been used to in Academy, but that's intentional, and I put it in here and designed it intentionally with that reason. And what you'll observe is the rest of the Easy Grow and Acquisition Nirvana videos that you may go on to later purchase down the line are of a similar nature, where they become more advanced and they start teaching you more advanced strategies and methods of thinking that will help you scale way faster, way sooner, with way more intent. So without further ado, let's get into Apocalyptic Imperial Scale, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Hey everyone, it's Charlie Morgan here, and welcome to Apocalyptic Imperial Scale. So in this video, I'm going to explain how to actually scale, because I've gone from 0 to 10K a month, from 10K a month to 100K a month, and from 100K a month to $1 million a month. I figured out how to consistently, repeatedly, predictably, maintainably, sustainably scale my business. And I've got no doubt that in the future I'll do $100 million a year, and then $1 billion a year, and so on and so forth. And so how do we actually scale? How do we actually grow something and increase the size of the thing that we have right now? Well, in this video, I'm going to completely blow your mind. I'm going to walk you through the abstractions, mental models, and philosophy that billionaires and decamillionaires and centimillionaires use to consistently 10x their income and achieve feats of scale that no one ever thought possible before. It's not that difficult once you understand it. And so in this video, I'm going to help you understand it. And this can get a little complicated. It can get a little abstract. So I need you to pay close attention, get rid of any distractions you might have, phone off the desk, close your tabs, close your email, and just give me your full undivided attention for the next few hours. And I'm going to blow your mind. So here's what we're going to cover. First of all, we're going to define what scale is. Then we're going to talk about the conditions of scale: strain, global, local, micro, macro, fractal, bit of a tongue twister there. 4 steps to scale, 4 disciplines: focus, energy, and time. What is focus? Macro versus micro focus. Polaris star. Asymmetries. 100 units of time. Throughput. Barrel, faucet, pipeline, and bank. Bottlenecks. Bottleneck identification. Fixing bottlenecks. Systems and diagnoses. And then economics. So you might see that if you're watching this in Acquisition Genesis, that there's some familiarities. You might see some similarities in terms of stuff that we might have already discussed. And that's okay. You might notice a minor overlap in this video between stuff that we've already discussed and some of the stuff we discuss here. And that's because what I'm going to be doing in this video is doing a deeper dive on certain topics. So, we've discussed systems, and, we've talked about throughput, and we've talked about metrics, and we've talked about bottlenecks, and I've defined them for you, and you're aware of them, but you don't really understand them on a deep enough level to use that knowledge yet. And so this video is designed to solidify your understanding of certain abstractions that if you apply this knowledge and you really listen and you really learn, like, you will completely destroy and steamroll every single person in your wake. You will monopolize your market and no one will even be able to come close to you. No one will be able to touch you in terms of how profitable you are. And all of your competitors will literally wither away in your presence. And if you're wondering, like, how do I know that's true? Well, that's quite literally what we're doing right now. Like, when I started Imperium, we had maybe like 20 competitors. Now there's like 1 or 2 left. And it's because no one can beat us. No one can compete with us because of the way we think. So I'm going to show you how. Let's get into it. So I want to give you a quick disclaimer around Consulting Nirvana here. So I've introduced Consulting Nirvana to you into the introduction at the start of Acquisition Genesis. But this video was originally made to be put at the phase 4 of Consulting Nirvana. So this video is an advanced late game video. Okay, this was originally made with the intent of teaching established 7-figure business owners how to get to 8 figures. Because, you know, it's about scale. So what is scale? Well, it's increasing the size of something. And that assumes you already have something. So if you don't have a successful business yet, if you're not doing 100 grand a month, you haven't really got anything to scale. You've just got, like, there's not much there, if that makes sense. So before you think, well, hang on a minute, that means this video is not relevant to me. I realized that after making this video that whilst this knowledge is advanced and it is more applicable to someone who's already doing 100 grand a month and wants to get to 1 million a month or whatever, or someone who's already doing like 400 grand a month and wants to get to like 1 million a month or whatever, it's imperative you understand this. Because I got this down, you know, not really until the last few years in my entrepreneurial career. And once I understood this, I just blew everything up. Like, I just managed to scale real fast. So because of this, there is going to be a small part of this video that you won't get. And that will be the part where we dive into the KPIs or metrics required to scale an info business to 8 figures. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is we've got a lot of abstractions and important theory to cover that will massively help you. But I am at certain points going to be discussing certain metrics and certain key performance indicators that info business owners need to have in place to get to 8 figures. So bear in mind that this video was initially intended for info business owners who are already successful. They're already at 7 or multi-7 figures and they want to get to 8 figures. That's who this video was made for. However, just because that's the case doesn't mean that you won't be able to derive value from it. And to be honest, like, you know, if you can consume this knowledge and understand it, you'll just eviscerate everyone. So there are going to be, like, when we're going through the metrics and key performance indicators, that bit won't apply to you, but everything else does. Okay. So in case you're wondering what Consulting Nirvana is, or you need a recap, Consulting Nirvana is a course inside of EasyGrow, and it's kind of our late game content. So, you know, in a video game, how you have early game and late game content, where, you know, if you take like an MMORPG, like you could take like a video game like RuneScape, for example, they've got lots and lots of early game content, but they're now at the point with the video game where once you've been around for a few years as a game and you've got thousands and thousands of players or millions of players in certain games cases, what starts to happen is you get lots of late game players, and those late game players still need to be entertained and they still need to receive value from the thing that they're playing. And so I treat my product like a game in the sense that I've got hundreds, if not thousands of people at this point to their goals and to the point where they want to go. And so they need to have more late game content. So Consulting Nirvana is kind of like a late game program. And what this does is Consulting Nirvana shows you how to get between 100 grand a month and $1 million a month with the high ticket info course model. And now this is where you should be headed. Every single client in the program should have the intention of reaching Consulting Nirvana. So you might be wondering once again, who is Consulting Nirvana for? Well, just to recap this, is for 4 different types of people who want to achieve 7, multi-7 or 8 figures in yearly income. So the first kind of person it helps is a coach or a consultant who's stuck and unable to scale because they're doing one-on-one or personalized coaching. So we help them transition to the info model, right, where they've already successfully coached more than 15 people and they've got 15 people results, but they want to scale. The second person it helps is coaches and consultants who already have a high ticket info product, achieve scale and growth by making their product and business better. So, you know, you might be watching this as someone who's already got an info course, but you want to make it better and scale. And then number 3 is experts who they don't really necessarily, like, they haven't had an agency or they haven't got a coaching business, but they want to turn their expertise into a successful business by starting a high ticket info product, thereby making money by selling their expertise. And the fourth person is an established agency owner or a done for you service provider who's signed more than 15 clients and got more than 15 people results on a done for you basis. and that person is stuck and unable to scale due to the operational complexity of working for clients, scale simply by teaching their clients how to do it instead. So these are the 4 types of avatars that can use Consultant Nirvana. If these apply to you, if any of these apply to you, right, then, if you're 1, 2, 3, or 4, then after Acquisition Genesis and Consulting Nirvana, after Acquisition Genesis and Self-Transcendence, you should go to Consultant Nirvana. You should head just straight over there because that's where you belong, okay? So if you're one of these people, then once you've been through Acquisition Genesis and Self-Transcendence, get yourself over to Consultant Nirvana because that's where you're going to find a huge amount of leverage. Now, I know that you probably bought this program for appointment booking systems, but the model that you use holds so much more leverage than an email system in the long term. Trust me, there's way more leverage in the business model than there is in the acquisition system. And so that's where you'll find more success in the long term. You still want to use the other systems, of course, but you can do that first. Now, if you're running an agency or a coaching or consulting business, and you're doing one-on-one or group personalized coaching in that business, or you're doing done-for-you work, then your only priority should be to get good enough at your thing, which means that you've signed more than 15 happy clients since starting, so that you can teach it. That should be your goal, to establish proof of concept around your thing so you can build a high-ticket info offer around Consultant Nirvana. So I'm hoping I'm making sense here. The point I'm making is that this video, it was designed as late-game content for established info business owners who are doing 7 figures or more, and it's designed to help them get to 8 figures. So there are going to be parts of this video that are relevant to that group of people that won't make sense to you. And when we get to those points, I will explain them to you and I will tell you, don't worry too much about this because you're not going to understand it. But 95% of this video is extremely relevant to your scenario and situation, regardless of where you are, and will completely blow your mind. So without further ado, and with all that in mind, I hope you're ready to have your head completely blown off your body. So here we have Apocalyptic Imperial Scale. So welcome to Apocalyptic Imperial Scale. Here we're going to be exploring the primary mental models and abstractions required for you to properly understand scale and how to achieve it. So this is all about scaling a business. It's about taking something that already works, and you might not have something that works yet, but it doesn't hurt to understand this, right? It's about taking something that already works and increasing the size of it. So let's actually start with some first principles here. And let's define what we're working with. So what is scale? Well, scale at first principle in a business context is an increase in size. That's all we're trying to achieve here. People massively overcomplicate scaling and they think it's this weird thing, but really all we're looking to do is just increase the size of the business. And what we can do is we can break our online info businesses or online businesses, but obviously I'm going to be using the word info here because, as I said, this video was intended for people in the info space, but it still applies to you. We can break these businesses into buckets that need to increase in size if we were to scale. So this would apply to you regardless of what you do. So the first bucket, or the first real system in a business, is the acquisition or conversion system. And scaling this system means getting more clients, increasing market share, more appointments, more leads, more sales, more units, more cash, more money. And this is what everyone wants to scale. This is what everyone wants more of. But there's 2 more things that people seem to forget that have to exist in order for scale to happen. So the second system that you have to scale in your business in order to achieve scale on a broad scale is value delivery. And this means more results for your clients, better results for your clients, more support, more questions, more testimonials, better product, etc. And the third thing that you need to scale, if you want to scale, is infrastructure. And this is more systems, bigger team, more operations, more standard operating procedures, more communication, more operational tools, more softwares, etc. So the playbook for scale is extremely simple. 1, we find a value delivery system that works really well on a micro level. This is your first priority if you want to grow a business. So if you have ambitions to scale, and when I use the word scale here, I'm talking about really getting to 8 figures. Because I don't really think getting to like 100 grand a month or 500 grand a month, that's not really scale. Like, yeah, you're sizable, but in this online space, like I'm talking about scale in terms of the height of achievement. Level 126 on RuneScape, or I don't know if you've ever played RuneScape before, but that denotes the highest level you can achieve on that game. And so, we're talking here about the highest level that is achievable is going to be 8 or multi-8 figures. So when we talk about scale, there's not much point in talking about 7 figures because, well, there's a level above that. And that's 8 or multi-8 figures. So if you want to, scale, and maybe you just want to get 100 grand a month, that's fine, but this is still going to be helpful. So yeah, this is your first priority, is you need to find a value delivery system that works incredibly well on a micro level. So this means that, over 30 clients, you've actually helped them all. You actually solve the problem. You actually do what you say you can do. The foundation you have for explosive apocalyptic scale on an imperial level is how well you can deliver value to people. It's the most important thing. You cannot scale without it. Now, in the short term, you can make a lot of money without a good value delivery system, where you can make a big promise and run ads and do sales calls and build a crappy product and make some money. But you're not going to last more than 6 to 12 months before people start to realize you're a scam and you're forced to go and get a job as some marketing manager for someone else because you couldn't hack building a good product. And I've seen that happen to a lot of people before. So really, there's no way around it. If you want long-term success, which is what you should want as a part of this program, this is the first thing. Now, the second thing in the playbook for scale, after finding a value delivery system that works, is finding an acquisition or conversion system that works on a micro level as well. So this means that you're able to actually acquire the clients. So really, you could argue that this is the first thing you have to find, but I don't want you to be under the illusion that acquisition is more important than value delivery, because you can acquire and convert as many people as you want, but if you don't deliver value, they're just going to ask for refunds and you're not really going to make any money at all. But you're not going to be certain that your thing works until you acquire clients to test it. So these two things kind of go hand in hand. Now, the third thing in the playbook for scale is to drastically increase the volume of inputs into the acquisition or conversion system. So really, this is what scale is. At first principle, we know that scale is just an increase in size. Now, at this point in the training, you know what a system is and you know how systems work. And so we can look at our business as a system, and we can visualize it as an input, a process, an output with feedback in an environment. And so really what we're doing is, to increase in size, all we have to do is increase the volume of inputs. Now, if we already have a proven acquisition or conversion system that works on a micro level, and we already have a proven value delivery system that works on a micro level, then this means that on the macro level, these two systems should hold in place, and all we have to do is increase the volume of inputs. It's a very simple thing to think. And if we increase the volume of inputs through working systems, we should scale into the macro. And the fourth step in the playbook for scale is to accommodate increasing clients with infrastructure. So we need to clean up the mess we create, basically, and we need to learn to bring order to the chaos that comes as a result of increasing the volume and increasing the outputs and such. And this is where it comes in handy, starting to hire people and building systems and learning how to operate a company. And we will be talking about that as we go through Consulting Nirvana. So we're not going to be talking about operations and stuff. If you're watching this in Acquisition Genesis and you're still struggling to acquire clients, well, you don't really need to worry too much about infrastructure, because you only need to build infrastructure when you create chaos and mess, and clients create chaos and mess. And so if you don't have many of them yet, you don't need to worry about this. But if you're watching this as a Consulting Nirvana member, then we're going to be continuing on through phase 4 here to explain how to build this infrastructure. So really, scale, in a sentence, is attempting to find a proof of concept on a micro level and then increasing the volume through it. So your first priority, before you can scale a business, you need to have a business. And a business is a collection of 3 systems, as we've explored, or a collection of different components that need to be working and in tow before you can grow them. So scale is conditional, and there are conditions of scale. So if you want to achieve scale and you want to get to 8 figures, and I'm telling you this as someone who's actually done it, by the way. This isn't some theory crafted, like I think this might be true. Like, as we go through this video and I walk you through the numbers and the methods, like, I actually did this. I've actually got to $1 million a month with a 50% profit margin, and I'm making like 500 grand a month profit. Like, this is actually what I've done. So I know this works, and I'm sure this will get me to 2 mil a month and beyond. And so scale is conditional. What this means is that we need certain business conditions to achieve it. So scale isn't just unconditional. You can't just scale any business. The only businesses that you can scale are businesses with conditions that give assent to scale. Now, what does this mean? Well, when you start a business, your entire job should be trying to find favorable initial conditions as below. So what we're looking for in a business that is at a low level, and I consider a low level to be anything, below 100 grand a month, is first of all, results. So the first condition of scale is having a product that actually gets clients results as fast as possible. The second condition for scale is an offer, which is an offer that positions your product in a way that resonates with the psychology of the market and attracts attention. The third condition for scale is appointments. It's having a system or a method that deploys your offer into the market to book appointments. The fourth condition of scale is show. This is having a process that encourages your appointments to actually show up. The fifth condition for scale is sales, which is having a script that converts appointments into closed deals. And the sixth condition for scale is profit, which is basically doing all of these 5 things here while still having a healthy, sustainable, and worthwhile profit margin. So if you want to scale, you must have all 6 of these conditions in place. Now, once again, this is info only. This is specifically for info businesses. However, this will apply to one-on-one coaching or agency models. However, you cannot scale one-on-one coaching and you cannot scale agency models. And I know this to be true because I've tried it and I've seen hundreds, if not thousands of people try it, and it does not work. The most scalable, profitable, and sizable, like in terms of how big you can grow the thing, business model is the info business model, which is why I'm encouraging you to enter it. It will make you the most money and get you the best results in the long term. But however, you might not be able to get there yet. Now, if you're watching this from Consultant Nirvana, obviously you are here. So basically, this is giving you the knowledge you need to have down the line. Now, we can measure each of these conditions. Remember, these are conditions of scale. We can measure these conditions with metrics. And scale is really all about understanding the key performance indicators associated with each condition and simply just achieving them. So for all of these metrics here, for all of these conditions rather, there are key performance indicators. And if you are able to line your business up and achieve those key performance indicators for these 6 different conditions, then you will scale. Or at least you'll be in a position where you can increase the volume of your inputs through your business to scale. If you try to scale and if you try to increase the volume of inputs and grow the size of the business without having these 6 things within KPI, then you're scaling a problem and your thing's going to blow up in your face and you're not going to be very successful. So before we try to increase the volume and before we try to get bigger, we have to get these 6 things in tow. And how do we know they're in tow? Well, we'll bring key performance indicator for them. And in case you're wondering, yes, I'm going to give you the key performance indicators in a second. So what are the key KPIs? Well, here's a rule for scale. Over the last 30 to 100 plus clients, in the last 3 to 6 months, the following must be true. So do you remember at the beginning of this video, when I told you that there might be something that doesn't make much sense? Well, it's going to be this part here, because we're talking about metrics here that are relevant to info businesses. So I still want you to watch this because I would quite like you to know this, because in the future, if you want to, of course, you should go into the info model. It's what I'm encouraging you to do. So you still need to know this information, and it doesn't hurt for you to know it. So just sit tight whilst I'll explain. So this is for people who are watching from Consultant Nirvana. So the first thing that you need to have, the first condition, is obviously client results. Now, if you are doing a high-ticket info product and you want to scale a high-ticket info product and a high-ticket info business, then the first metric you need to have as a KPI is a refund rate of less than 5 to 10%. Now, really, it should be 5% or less. So how do we track whether or not you are in the condition for scale for results? Well, the first and most obvious one is how many people ask for a refund. Because if your product sucks, people are going to ask for a refund. And if people aren't getting results, they're going to ask for a refund. So the healthiest and most straightforward metric you can use to measure your results is your refund rate. And so if you have a higher refund rate, really than 5%, you shouldn't try to scale. The second thing that allows us to track whether or not our results are in KPI is that 90% of our clients are nightmare free. And I'm considering a nightmare client as someone that complains, moans, or drags their feet. So you know those clients you have that make you want to basically just like go and hide in a hole somewhere because they're so annoying. Well, If more than 10% of your clients are doing this, then you don't really qualify to scale, because either your program is just confusing, you're just not getting people results and they're just being a nightmare. Your dispute rate must be less than 2.5%. This is a big deal, because if your dispute rate is higher than this, then Stripe will basically just shut your account down. You might get away with doing this at a lower volume, but as soon as you start processing more payments and you get to a certain threshold, if your dispute rate is more than that, like Stripe's going to just tear you apart. Really, it should be less than this. Like our dispute rate is like way less than 1%. And I still think 2%, 2.5% might be too high as well. But I have seen some people process through Stripe with a higher dispute rate, but I don't know how they do it. But this is a big deal. Your dispute rate should be super low. Now, your average collection on at least 50% of the receivable cash on payment plan should be 50%. So if you have a $10,000 product and you do a payment plan, let's say over a 4-month period of 4 payments of $2,500, then on average, in the last 3 to 6 months, over the last 30 to 100 clients, then you should have collected on at least 50% of that money. You must have an average collection rate of 50% on receivable cash on payment plans. Anything less, and you're just not going to scale properly. And your average order value, which represents your day one cash collected, should be at minimum 25 to 50% of the total price of your program. So once again, if I'm charging $10,000 for a program, then my average order value, which means that the average amount of cash that I collect on day one of my relationship of closing my client, should be at least $2,500 or $5,000. Because to scale, really, we're going to be using ads. That's the main way we're going to scale. That's the main lever and control that we can pull to drastically increase the volume of our inputs, the click of a button. And if you have less than 25% AOV, then you're not going to liquidate your ad spend, and it's going to end up costing you too much to get a client, and you're going to lose money and be unprofitable for too long, and you're going to fail. So those are the conditions, those are the key performance indicators that validate your results. So if you have these, and these are true over the last 30 to 100 clients in the last couple of months, then you can tick this box off and you have found the condition of results. If these aren't true, then you need to go and seriously work on your product. And that's really the main point here. Metrics show weakness, and weakness simply will not do. And if you're weak anywhere and you try to scale, then all you're going to be doing is scaling that weakness. You know that quote about how a chain is only as strong as its weakest link? Well, a business is only as strong as its weakest condition. And if you try to grow the business and increase the size, you're not going to increase the size of anything except from really the main problem that you're facing right now. And so only really problemless businesses can scale. And we measure problems based on these conditions and KPIs. So the next thing we need to validate as a condition is the offer. So we know our offer is good and within KPI if we've booked more than 120 appointments with it. So really that's all there is to it. Like you can say that your offer works if you've booked more than 120 calls, and that's really that. So that's a pretty easy one to tick off. Now, the third one is appointments. So how do we validate the condition for appointments? Well, if you're running a cold system, then your appointment booking rate is at least 2.5%. Now, you can scale more than this. You can scale like a 1% ABR or a 2% ABR, but really 2.5% is pretty favorable. Now, if you're running an ad system, then the main metric here to measure is the cost per strategy session. And this is basically like how much it costs you to book an appointment through an ad system. And if this is anything more than $200, well, you're kind of in trouble. Now, if you're charging a really high price for your program, like, 20 grand, 30 grand, then you can afford to pay way more than this. So this metric here is relevant to, your average order value, your cash collection, etc. But, for the average high ticket info business that's charging maybe $5,000 to $10,000, if you try and do this with anything more than $200, it's not going to work. Trust me, I've tried. I know these metrics to be true because these are the metrics I have in tow and the KPIs that I have literally used myself for my business to get to $1 million a month. This is once again not some theory crafted numbers that I pulled out of thin air. These are actual numbers that I have used and KPIs that I have put myself into that have allowed me to get to $1 million a month with a 50% profit margin. So if you want to make 500 grand a month profit before tax, then this is what you have to do. So the other thing as well for ads, if you're running ads, is you have a 1.5x ROAS on day one cash collected and at least a 3x ROAS on lifetime collection. So that's how we validate the ads with these three metrics here. This is how we validate the outbound systems. Now, if you're using an inbound system, we can't really measure an inbound system because A, it requires time and content is very intangible to measure. So there's no real point in doing this. And I can tell you right now that like, if your entire strategy for scaling your business is inbound, then you're in for some real trouble. You need ads or you need cold, because inbound is fantastic, but ultimately you're at the mercy of an algorithm, and like you kind of are at the mercy of an algorithm as well with like cold, like its deliverability, and with like traffic on ads, it's like there's still stuff to like algorithmically worry about. But inbound, like you can't really press a button and linearly increase your inputs. Yeah, you can make more content, but you know, what if you make a YouTube video, it doesn't do very well, and then suddenly for the next week you have no appointments? Like, it's not very reliable. It's amazing and it can make you a ton of money. It's made me millions, probably tens of millions of dollars at this point, but you can't rely on it to scale. So the next thing we need, the next condition, is the show. And this is basically building a system inside of the business that gets appointments to show up. Because what you're probably noticing here is we're working through this in a linear fashion. If you can have like a great offer and you can have like fantastic cost per strategy session, but if you don't have results, like it doesn't matter. And it's the same thing with the show here. Okay, there's no point in getting these appointment things in place and being like, okay, I've finally got my cost per call down to $160. It's time to increase the ad spend. Well, if you haven't validated a show system, then you're just going to be scaling the problem of these appointments not showing up. So we have to have it. So 60% of your appointments show up. And you'll know that this is valid or not once you've booked 120 appointments. So, you know, if you've booked 120 appointments, then we can validate the show rate being at 60%. So on 120, you know, it's pretty simple. That's how it works. It's like 72 appointments have showed up of those 120. That's 60%, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So the fifth thing is sales. So you need to validate a sales process, and you also need to validate your own sales skills as well. So if you're taking sales calls, then you must have a conversion rate of at least 25%. And if a rep is taking the sales calls, then they must convert at 15%. Because, you know, if you're not, like I can tell you right now that if you're doing sales calls right now, any rep that you onboard will probably do maybe half as bad as you on the phone. They might do maybe 60 to 70% of what you're capable of, and that's really all they'll ever do. If you can't sell, then you don't know how to manage someone who can sell, and you know you need to know how to do it yourself. So you need to be converting at 25% in order to really scale this business, because if you can convert at 25%, then typically you can manage and teach people to close at 15%. And 15% is a scalable number because I've scaled it. So you can do that. And then the final thing, the sixth condition that you need to have in place in order to scale is a profit margin of 50 to 60%. Anything less than this is just not worth it. Like, you know, you could say 30% is great or whatever, but like, this is obviously for the info business model. If you're running an info business and your margin's less than 50% or anything less than 50%, there's something wrong with your brain. Like, you're doing something seriously wrong. You're spending money in places where you absolutely do not need to spend them. And that's true. And I know this because my profit margin, since I got to, you know, from anywhere between 100 grand a month to $1 million a month, has been between 50 to 60%. So once again, I know it because I've done it. So these are the conditions you have for scale. If you don't have these numbers in your info business, now obviously if you're running an agency or you're doing one-on-one coaching, these numbers are going to be like, whoa, what the hell is like CPSS, and I'm not running ads, and I haven't booked 120 appointments. Like, you don't have to worry too much about these metrics. If you're not a high-ticket info product entrepreneur yet, and you haven't been through Consultant Nirvana, then like I said, these metrics don't apply. However, if you're watching this from Consultant Nirvana and these do apply, then what you need to do is you need to learn that in order for you to grow your business and scale it, you must sort these things out first. This is your list of priorities. If you don't have these in place, you can't scale. Once you have these in place, you can scale. These are conditions. So above are the requirements for scale. And I'm telling you right now that if you have them, you can literally 2x to 20x your business in the next 6 to 12 months. And this is obviously provided the total available market is big enough, but really, like, you could go, if you had those conditions and you nailed that, if you had an info product and you have like a scalable infrastructure, like, you could go from 40 grand a month to 800 grand a month in like a year. And I'm not even joking. If you have those conditions, it's literally just about increasing the inputs. So if you don't have these, like, why do they matter? Because I'm telling you here that if you don't have these conditions and you don't have these KPIs, then you won't be able to scale. And all your focus should be on getting them. Like, this is now your to-do list if you don't have them, if you're an info entrepreneur. If you're not an info entrepreneur and you're running an agency or a coaching business, one-on-one or whatever, your main to-do list right now is finishing the program and going through. But if you're in Consultant Nirvana, like I said, then you have to do this. So why? Like, why are these conditions so important, and why do you have to have them? Well, it's because of something called strain. So if you don't have these conditions in KPI, you can't scale. Well, why is that? Well, if you're out of KPI in any of the above, in any of these things here, then basically you're just going to be scaling problems. And this is because scale applies something called stress or strain to your business and the components of it. Now, when you try to scale, any issue that is existing in the business will be amplified, not only by the exponent of scale, but probably also multiplied by 2. And weaknesses essentially create exposure. Now, what this means is, if you have a problem right now and you try to increase the size of the business, like I said before, the main thing you're increasing the size of is the problem. So for example, if at 30 successful clients with your info business, you have a problem with client support and you scale the business by 5x, then you're probably going to increase the size of that problem by 100x or 10x, right? So, if you run an info business and at 30 clients, like, let's say all of the support goes through you. Like, you are centralized to the support, which means that everyone's asking you questions, and like, clients cannot get help or understand your program without having to message you. Well, that's fine in a small scale, but if you go from having 30 clients to 300 clients, your business is going to break, because not only can you not support that many people, but if you are supporting that many people, you can't do anything else. And then you're literally just a support person, and you can't run ads, you can't make YouTube videos, you can't run a sales team. That your business is gonna die. So what is happening? Like, whatever problems you have right now that might not seem like that big of a deal, trust me, when you increase the size of the business and you increase the volume of the inputs and you put more strain on your systems, that problem will be huge. And scale is simply increasing the volume of the input through the business. When you increase the volume, you put more strain on the systems in the business, and this strain acts as pressure. And if your systems are weak, the pressure will break them and the business will fall apart. Now, here's how to visualize this. So say you have a submarine with a tiny, tiny crack in its hull. At a surface level, or just below the water, this isn't really a problem. So what we can see here, I'm just going to make sure I'm zoomed in properly. This is fine. So what we can see here with this submarine, let's just come back in. Do that. Okay. So what we can see here is, with this submarine, is this represents your business. And we can see just above the water is like not very big scale. So maybe this is like 10, 20, 30K a month. It's like, you're above the water, you're just under the water slightly. You haven't gone very deep into the market. There's not much pressure on the submarine. It's just like, you're just running this lifestyle business basically. But as the submarine dives, and this represents scale, so we're going deeper into the market here, we're getting more and more clients. As the submarine dives, the pressure gets greater. So when you go down in water, and the deeper you go, like, your ears start to pop and the water pressure increases. Well, this is kind of how scaling a business works. The deeper you go into the market and the more clients you sign, the more pressure that is exerted onto your business and the problems within it. And so what might be a tiny little problem at the beginning that doesn't really hurt you at all because there is no pressure to expose the problem or the weakness, well, this thing's going to get bigger and bigger. So we start off as a tiny little crack here. And I'll zoom in here just so you can see. So you can visualize this. We have a tiny crack at the beginning, no scale. And as we increase the pressure and the scale, the crack gets bigger and bigger. And it's going to get so big that eventually it's going to split the thing apart and destroy your entire business. And the crack is basically having any of these metrics out of KPI. So if you don't have these conditions in key performance indicator, as I've explained to you, and you try to increase the pressure in the business by scaling, you can do it for a short while, but you're not going to get very far without breaking. What was a quick teeny crack becomes a bigger and more problem with enough pressure, what was a teeny crack can destroy the entire submarine. The same is true for the systems in your business. You have to think of it like this. Your business has to be completely watertight. It doesn't matter how much pressure is applied to the hull of that damn thing, nothing's going to break. Because metrics reveal weakness, and weakness reveals incompetence, and incompetence reveals you. So you'll learn this when you go through the mindset module, or maybe you already have been and you've already learned this if you're in Consultant Nirvana. But if you don't have one of these things in KPI and you're trying to scale, it's because it's your fault. Like, if you don't know how to conduct sales calls, it's your fault. If you don't know how to book appointments with an offer, it's your fault. If your dispute rate is too high, it's your fault. And all of these things reveal your incompetencies. And this is why scaling a business is really about scaling yourself. It's about building your skills and building your knowledge and your arsenal of understanding of your market and your business and everything, so that you are competent enough to build these systems and fix these problems so that you can scale. So really, if you're asking yourself, like, how do you scale a business? Well, you start by scaling your skill sets, your knowledge, and your understanding. And then you apply that skill set, understanding, and knowledge, and you leverage it in your business to solve problems, find key performance indicators, and build systems that allow you to sustain those key performance indicators, and then you can increase the thing. So a business is like a really great self-improvement machine, because it forces you to learn these skills and these things, and with time you'll become more skilled. Now, I'm obviously in this program taking responsibility for all of these things for you, because I can tell you right now, with our offer system, you're going to do this, our ABR system is going to do this, our ad systems, like, you just need to copy the program and you'll have all these things in tow. But the program is giving you the knowledge and the skills and the understanding. So you're taking responsibility for these things by going through the program. So good job on that. Good stuff. So global, local, micro, macro, fractal. It's a bit of a tongue twister, I know. I managed to get it right the first time. So really, businesses behave on a global and local scale and a micro and macro scale. And what this means is that as something is in the small, so it will be in the big. So typically, if you can sign 30 clients on a micro level or a local level, which means it's like a small scale, and if you can sign those 30 clients with the scaling condition KPIs that I've gone through, then typically you can sign 3,000 clients on a macro or global level whilst maintaining the same KPIs. So imagine for a second, let's take the COVID virus, okay? COVID-19, the virus. If you want to understand the difference between global and local, or the difference between micro and macro, think of it like this. How COVID behaves with, say, 1,000 people in a room, and how it interacts, and like the symptoms and the causes and how it transmits itself and everything, and like how many people get infected and how many people die from it, etc., etc. How it behaves on that small level with 1,000 people represents an identical fractal, because how it affects 1,000 people is how it's going to affect 1 billion people. We'll have the same transmission rates, the same symptoms, the same death tolls, the same mutation rates, etc., etc. And so what we can learn to do with systems and things in the world is realize that you can project what's happening in the micro onto the macro. And you can look at what's happening in the small and understand that if you increase the size of that thing, then the pattern of what's happening in the small will then continue to happen in the big. Now, why am I explaining this? Well, business systems produce results on a micro/local level and a macro/global level as well. Typically, not always, however, because it's not always linear, but typically the results you see in the micro level will be the results you see in the macro level with increased size. This is why I'm stressing to you to get these things in check. Because if you can get these things in check for the next 100 clients, then they will and they should stay in check for the next 10,000. You only have to really figure these things out once. You have to sustain them and maintain them and continuously test and iterate to combat the entropy that will come for you when you build these things. However, once you've nailed these, it's really easy to scale. Scaling isn't hard. Finding favorable conditions for business growth is hard. Once you've found the favorable conditions, all you have to do is press a few buttons, like increase your ad spend by like 4x. And I did this recently. Like I found all these KPIs and I was spending like maybe 60 grand a month on ads. And I was like, okay, I want to double my business. How do I double my business? Oh, I'm just going to double how much I spend on ads. Because I know that, if I've signed 300 clients, if I sign another 3,000, like the refund rate's not going to go up because it's the same market going through the same product. The nightmare rate isn't going to increase because it's the same clients going through the same product. Dispute rate is going to stay the same because it's the same clients going through the same product. It's the same people with the same problem going through the same solution. I know it works in a small scale. I know I'm going to collect this on average. I know I'm going to collect this on average. I know my offer works because I've already booked 1,000 appointments, so I can definitely book 10,000 appointments with it. I know that my cost per strategy session will stay the same for as long as the market is big enough to support the increase in ad spend. I know the ROAS will hold strong. Like, you will find a point of diminishing return with the increase of volume and the increase of input. Like, for example, I probably wouldn't be able to spend $1 million a month on ads and keep these things the same because I don't think the market would support that amount of impressions because there's not that many people. Like, my cost per strategy session would just spike way up because the frequency would go up. But I know that if I've booked 120 appointments and on those 120 appointments I have a 60% show rate, then it's extremely likely that if I book 12,000 appointments, I'm still going to have a 60% show rate because I'm using the same system. The variables are all the same. The only difference is the increase of volume. Volume doesn't necessarily change or alter the structure of a system. It doesn't. All it does is just get more through the system. So if I have any system for any of these things, like a show system, and I just put way more people, I book way more appointments, it doesn't matter that I'm booking more appointments because the system shouldn't break. And this is why we want to get those conditions. Well, how do we know that what works on a small scale will work on a big scale? Well, we can understand something called fractals. Fractals are basically patterns that emerge and they sort of continue and repeat regardless of size. So if you go and look at, like, a snowflake, for example, you can see like the pattern of the snowflake. If it's like, let's just say it's like a couple of inches long, and you can see it and you can like hold it in a glove before it melts. But if you put that snowflake under a microscope, you'd see that under a microscope on certain levels of scale, as we zoom in, that the same pattern will recur no matter how much you zoom in. And I've got this GIF diagram here on the right hand side to show the example. So you can see here, like, this is fractal. It's the same pattern, it's the same shape emerging regardless of how much we zoom in on the thing. And this applies in nature. This happens everywhere. This happens with plants and trees. This happens with landscapes. This happens with solar systems and the universe and space and everything. Like, it's kind of a law of nature. And we can apply this law of nature to online businesses because what works on a small level will work on a large level. And this happens because everyone in your market has affinity to each other. They share the similar and same psychological and behavioral conditions. So in the same way that I can predict how a virus affects 1,000 people will probably be how it affects 1 million people, well, I can also predict that how 30 coaches and consultants behave is how 30,000 coaches and consultants will behave. Because you'll find fractal patterns. Like, if I know, like, on average, if I just round up 30 coaches, or let's just say I round up 100 coaches, there's probably like, there's millions of people in the world that do coaching and consulting, right? On the online space. So if I round up 100 of them and I find out the average amount of money that they all have in their bank, and if I find out what sort of offer will resonate with them, who mentored them, what channels they watch, what keeps them up at night, what they worry about, what their dreams are, if I know what will get them to schedule an appointment, what sort of problems they're facing, what sort of information they need to solve the problems, and if I know why they're working in the first place, like, if I can figure this out about 100 coaching consultants, then I can extrapolate that understanding and project it onto the entire market because people have affinity. Now, if I took one coach and tried to extrapolate my understanding of one coach onto 100,000 coaches, it's probably not going to work because you're going to find anomalies and you're going to find weird things. But if you have enough data and enough people, then you can start to observe the patterns that recur consistently over that group of people, and you truly can just extrapolate that onto the entire market. And this is why going from 0 to 100 grand a month is almost harder. Well, really going from like 0 to 10K a month is almost harder than going from 10K to 100K a month, because it's $0 when you're starting. You don't have any understanding of your market. But once you serve like maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 clients, you start to observe the patterns and you start to understand the entire machine and the entire economy of the market and the entire psychology and situational latent conditions of your niche based on that information. And simply put, if you deeply understand 30 people in your niche, I'm going to put here 30 to 100 people, you can extrapolate that and project it with relative accuracy onto the entire niche. And this is why scale is possible. Because, like, once again, if I figure out how to get, 50 people to show up, then I can, using the same system, I can probably figure out how to get 5,000 people to show up. It's because I know I'm repeating myself, but the volume does not impact the process. Repeat after me. The volume does not impact the process. If you have a pipe, a big water pipe, and you let's say you have one big long pipe, and let's say that you pour like 1 liter of water into that pipe, and the water flows through the pipe. But let's say the pipe is capable of holding 10 liters of water. Well, if you pour 10 liters of water into the pipe, then 10 liters of water will flow through the pipe. The pipe isn't going to change because it's the same pipe. And this is the point I'm trying to make about your business and the way it runs. It's throughput. And we're going to talk about this in just a second here. We're going to get into this and I'm going to completely blow your brain off of its head, but, off of its body. But you get the point, right? It's not about the process, it's about the volume. So once you have a pipe that works, there will be a capacity for how much that pipe can take, right? For example, like I can't get more appointments to show up than I have availability for, but you can find the point of optimal efficiency and push as much through as possible. So let's recap. 4 steps to scale. So the hard part of scaling, well, first of all, we'll say this. Scale is extremely simple to gauge. It's really not difficult to understand. Like a lot of people, when you say, okay, well, how do you scale a business? What is scale, etc., they get all confused and they get all like up in arms and like, I don't know, it's like growing a business, I suppose, or I don't know, bro, just go and read Russell Brunson's latest book, or it's about building funnels. It's not. It's literally just the following. Step 1, finding favorable business conditions. And this is basically just finding KPIs. And the good news for you, my friend, is that since you purchased this program, you're going to find these KPIs real damn easy, because I'm going to give you the offers and, you've already built an offer for this, but I'm going to give you the information on how to build the product and do the service delivery if you're doing whatever. Well, this is Consultant Nirvana, right? If you're ready to do the info thing, that's Consultant Nirvana. So I'm going to show you how to get a refund rate of less than 5 to 10%. I'm going to show you how to do this and reduce this and collect this. I'm also going to show you how to get this and this and this. And I've already got a system for this I'm going to give you, same for this and same for this. So good news, fantastic news. You've kind of already found these favorable conditions. You might not have them right now, but they're in the program and we've proven them to work for like 2,000 people at this point. So you're in a pretty good spot, but it's going to take you, a few months probably to like introduce them properly. So it's not just going to be like instant, like you watch the video and the problem is solved. Like you're going to have to apply some information and think for yourself a little bit. So, they're there, but it's going to take some time. But once you've completed step 1, step 2 is really easy. It's just increasing the volume of the input through the system. So, if by this we're building a pipe that can handle 10 liters of water to flow through it, then all we're doing here, is we're just getting more water and we're just pushing more water through the pipe. Now, step 3 is building operational infrastructure to manage chaos. And this will come later on in Consultant Nirvana. And step 4 is optimization and oversight of the machine. And this will once again come later in Consultant Nirvana. So really, all we're focused on right now is step 1. Step 2 doesn't require a video for me to explain how to do it, because this is literally just taking the systems you already have and just increasing the volume of them. So like, for example, if you're running cold emails and you have a system that works to acquire clients and keep them, and you're sending 100 cold emails a day, well, just send 1,000. If you want to 10x the business, just send 1,000 cold emails a day. If you want to 5x the business, you send 500 cold emails per day. Now, scale won't always happen linearly, but typically, you'll have a certain amount of clients or what would you call it, mess or chaos that you can handle, and you can just increase the size of the business to that level just by increasing the volume of the inputs. Sometimes it won't be linear. Like for example, if I just double my ad spend, I might not double the amount of clients I get, but it depends on the engineering of the systems that the value flows through. And that's it. It's so simple. So step one is basically engineering working systems that create favorable conditions for different components of the business that won't break under the strain or stress of a significant volume increase. Because, if we have a pipe visualized here that can handle 10 liters of water, but halfway through that pipe, there's a big leak that's going to lose like 80% of the water, or halfway through the pipe, there's a bottleneck where it goes really narrow, then, we can't really put 10 liters of water through the pipe. It's just going to backlog and just overflow, and we're going to lose a lot of value. So step two is the actual act of scaling. This is basically just understanding the below diagram and then pulling levers to increase how much input flows through the business to produce the output. Then you take the output and you feed it back into the input and create a feedback loop. That's how you scale. It's not difficult. Step two is the easy part. So, we've recapped. You should understand what a system is at this point, but it's pretty simple. What is the true first principle input of a business? It's the niche's attention. It's attention. Attention is the first. It is the genesis of any relationship. Because what you're doing with a business is you're creating a relationship with another human. You're adding value to their life by solving a problem for them, by basically alleviating pain by solving a problem. So value is created when pain is alleviated, and pain is alleviated when problems are solved. So you're getting their attention. You're creating a relationship by adding value. And then by adding that value, which is basically just solving the problem and removing their pain, people pay you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that money they've paid you, which is profit, after the expenses of adding the value, and then we're going to reinvest that profit to get more attention and to build more relationships. And so it goes attention, conditions, profit, and you take that money and you put it back in. And this is literally an infinite money glitch. Like, discovering this thing is like being 13 again and playing a video game with all your friends, but you know how to find the infinite money glitch. Like, you're going through the video game and you've accidentally pressed like a couple of, you've pressed a weird combination on your controller, and then you've just had like, $10,000 put into your inventory. And then you press it again, and then you get another $10,000 and again, and you're just pressing this thing over and over again. It's literally the infinite money glitch. Attention, conditions, profit, reinvest, more attention, same conditions, more profit, reinvest, and it just goes and goes and goes. The thing that people fuck up here is they don't reinvest. People are short-sighted and, quite frankly, stupid. A lot of people in this space that I know, they know how to get the attention, they have favorable conditions, and they make profit. But what they do is they take this profit and they go and put it into like yachts and yacht parties and private jet travel and like Rolls Royces and Lamborghinis and like really expensive watches. Like, there's nothing wrong with taking some profit and going and having a nice time. Like, I live in a nice house and I have a nice car, but I know people that spend like 90% of the money they make on just looking rich. And that's really dumb, because why would you do that when you could just take that money that you've made and just make more of it? And just, literally is the infinite money glitch. Like, it doesn't get any clearer than this. So step 3 is relatively straightforward as well. Because, step 1 is favorable conditions, step 2 is increasing volume, and step 3 is the infrastructure. So this is basically building internal infrastructure to handle the mess and chaos that comes with a drastic increase in volume of outputs. So, we're scaling this thing, we're reinvesting, scaling, and this is called a flywheel, basically, where the output creates more of the input, and the input creates more of the output, and just whoosh. Like, if you're wondering why exponential graphs happen like this, where it just goes whoosh like this, is because of feedback. And feedback occurs as a positive feedback loop in this case, where the input creates more of the output, and the output creates more of the input, and the input therefore creates more of the output, which therefore creates more of the input, and just boom, 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 boom. And then once you apply time to that, you start to hockey stick like this, right? So once you've done this, step 3 is obviously straightforward. So here you need to build cash flow management systems to track internal metrics, and then obviously like a ton of operational procedures as well. And we'll cover the operation stuff in a later video in Consultant Nirvana. Right now, I'm focused on just helping you understand scale, not the consequences of it. Now, it's very unlikely that you've nailed step 1, because the truth is that if you had nailed step 1 and you had all of these things in KPI, then you wouldn't have bought this program, because you'd already be at $1 million a month. So if you have nailed step 1, then you just need to increase the volume of your inputs. So I want you just to take a second here to really just think about this. Once you have something that works, All you need to do to get more of what you want is do it more often. I was on a coaching call the other day with someone who was spending $200 a day on Instagram ads. And that person was putting $1 in to get $8 out. Okay? Hear me there. He spent $200 and I think he quite literally made like $3,200 on, like his cost per acquisition was like, $200. He was making $200 per client and each client was giving him like $3 grand-ish. It's like a 7 to 8x return on ad spend. And he was like, I don't know what to do, man. Like I feel like I should build some more systems. I was like, dude, what on earth, what in the living hell are you doing, man? Like quite literally, where's your brain? Like, why are you not taking all of that money and putting it back into ads? I was like, what's your goal? He was like, I don't know. I'm kind of making like, 60 grand a month right now, 70 grand a month. I want to get to like 500 grand a month. Like I wanted to kind of like, get 600 grand a month, like 10x. And I was like, okay, well then just spend 10 times more money on Instagram ads. You've got a system that produces an 8x ROAS, which is insane. So why are you not just spending more money on the thing that works? And then he was like, oh yeah. And then he just went and spent more money on the thing that works. And now he's making more money. So this is an important lesson in business. Like just like building your company from scratch to like multi 6 figures is hard. And it's confusing and it's complicated and it sucks. But do not for a second make the mistake of thinking that going anywhere beyond that is any more difficult than what you experienced at the beginning. I can tell you, dude, getting to $1 million a month is tricky. You've got to learn how to build a sales team. You've got to learn how to manage ads. You've got to learn how to build an audience sometimes. You've got to learn how to destroy everyone in terms of product. Like it's not easy, but it's a different kind of difficulty. It's not going from, for me personally, I can tell you this, going from 0 to 100K a month was not any more or less difficult than going from 100K a month to $1 million a month. They're really like the same level of difficulty. They just require a slightly different method of thinking. So it's just increasing the inputs. So, how do we do this? How do we increase the inputs? Well, if we're running ads, we just spend more on ads. If we're doing outbound, we just send more emails. We do more outreach or hire more setters. And if we're doing inbound, we just make better or more content. Like it's not hard. You just find what works and you just repeat it and you go and go again until you go to the point of diminishing returns and you create this feedback loop where it goes, I want you to draw this, by the way. Like, even just the feedback loop of going from attention to profit back to attention back to profit is just boom, 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 boom. Okay? So step 4 is optimization and management. We'll do that in later videos. But as you realize now, scaling is easy. All it is pressing a few buttons and increasing volume through an already working system. But the hard part is finding conditions for a working system. And you've obviously bought the program to do that. So how do you find these favorable conditions and establish these KPIs? Like, okay, at this point, you're like, great, Charlie. You've given me like this understanding. I know what I need to do. Like if I'm not a consultant Nirvana yet, I need to focus on getting there. And when I get there, I need to focus on getting these. And that's really all there is to it to get to $1 million a month, right? It's just then you've done that, then you increase the volume. But like, how do you find them? Well, obviously the program is going to give you a lot of what you need. It's going to give you the funnels and the scripts and the processes to do this, and that's great. But in this video, as I'm sure you're aware, in Consultant Nirvana and certain parts of Consultant Nirvana and also in Access and Genesis, as you're watching through Access and Genesis, I'm sure you're aware that like we don't like to just give you the stuff. We like to teach you to think. So I'm going to teach you how to think, and I'm going to teach you how to understand the world and the things that you need to understand to find the KPIs yourself. Not only am I going to give them to you, but I'm going to reveal the wiring and show you how I came to those conclusions myself. And this is devastating. If you can learn to do this, and if you pay attention to however long, the rest of this video is, whilst I explain the 4 disciplines that allow you to do this, mate, you are going to, you'll just ruin everyone. You'll monopolize your market and you will destroy. And I know that because that's literally what I've done. Like, it's night and day. So, if you want to understand how to find these favorable conditions and establish these KPIs and therefore scale, make more money than you quite possibly, quite frankly, ever know what to do with, It's about understanding, applying, and leveraging 4 key abstractions. Like, surprise, surprise, it's about how you think. It's about your paradigm. It's about the way you see the world and the way that you orient your decisions and actions in it against these 4 things. So let's go into these disciplines. I'm going to explain them, and some of them might seem boring or not interesting, but trust me, these could make you 5 million a year in profit, as they have done for me. So, in order to find the conditions required for scale, you need to understand 4 key disciplines. Focus, concentrating your energy and time into one thing, and asymmetries. Focus is leverage, asymmetries are leverage. When we combine focus and asymmetries, we stack so much leverage that we just destroy everyone. Throughput, understanding how value flows through a business and how to fix bottlenecks. Systems, systemizing parts of your company for repeat, sustain, maintain, and predictability. Economics, getting numbers right and finding leverage using controls to get it. So it's focus, throughput, systems, and economics. These 4 words might not seem like much. You might be like, yeah, I know what focus is. I've watched a self-improvement video. You might not know what throughput is. You might think I know what a system is. I've explained what a system is to you, but I'm gonna show you like some deep dark secrets around systemization that very, very few entrepreneurs understand. And all of these things interlace and are interlinked. You have to understand focus to understand throughput. You have to understand throughput to understand systems, and you have to understand systems to understand economics. And when you interlace all these things together, like, oh my God. Right. In case you can't tell, I get quite excited about it. So let's get into it. So if you nail and properly gauge all 4 of these abstractions and all their intricacies, you'll be able to find exactly what you need to scale. Remember, and I know I'm repeating myself here, all you need to do is find these things. And how we're going to find them? We're going to use these 4 abstractions. These abstractions are problem-solving tools, so let's get into them. So the first abstraction that we're going to use to generate apocalyptic imperial scale is focus. So let's start with the first principle of the entire human condition. All you have in this life is energy and time. Now you might say, but I have a name, and I have a house, and I have a family. Well, not really. Like, yeah, sure, you do. But if you boil everything down to first principle, and we know it's first principle by applying this to every single human being on the planet, like what are the universal things that every single human has? Because not every human has a house and a family. Sure, everyone might have a name and an identity, but really, let's be serious here. What are the core things? Well, all we have is energy, which is essentially calorific potential that, comes as a result of digesting the food we eat, and time. These are the only 2 things that really at first principle we all have. Now, we're all the same in that regard because we all have the same amount of time. Everyone's given 24 hours a day. We all have, the same amount. Like, sure, someone might die at 90, someone might die at 70. So the person who's 90 has had 20 more years than the person who's 70. So yeah, sometimes people get more time than others. But generally speaking, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And also, we all have a similar amount of energy or calorific potential each day. So some people might have less energy than others. Like, someone might be eating foods that is rubbish for them and makes them tired and sluggish. And someone might be like just eating real clean, and so they have more energy. And someone might drink like no water or get no sleep, so that they haven't got much energy. But generally speaking, like, we all have a relatively similar amount of energy. Like, you're not going to destroy someone in business just by eating a little bit of a cleaner diet or sleeping 1 extra night than them. Like, like if it's funny, like if I'm trying to compete with someone, like, yeah, I can get like an extra hour of sleep a night than them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to beat them. Like, I can't get more time than them because everyone has the same amount of time. You can get a little bit more energy, but there's not a huge amount of leverage to get there. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Like, I'm not advocating for like less sleep and, all that, but typically it's the same. But as I'm sure you've noticed, we get very different results. Why? Like, if we all have the same amount of energy and time, roughly, then, like, why are our results anything but roughly the same? Like, why is it that some person, can be a billionaire by 35, and another person by 35 can be still living with their parents, in debt and miserable? Well, what on earth is going on there? Like, if they've got the same stuff to work with, then why do they get different results? There's not only different results, but results that are so different that it's incomprehensible. Well, it's because of focus, which is a force multiplier on the effects of spending time and energy. So I want you to imagine here that when you're born, you have a bank. And I'm going to explain this. So as humans, we have a finite amount of time and energy in our lifetime. So imagine that when you're born, you have a bank that is filled up with two currencies. And those currencies are E and T. So you have a bank, it's filled up with energy and time. You have two checking accounts. You have you have two savings accounts. In one account, you have energy, you have like 1,000 units of energy or whatever, and you have like X amount of time. So, if you think about it, like, let's say the average life expectancy is 85. Well, then in your bank of time, you have like 85 years. And, you can then say that's like, whatever, like I don't know how many months that is, like 900 months or something. I'm not sure, but you get the point, right? And then it's the same thing with energy. You have a finite amount of energy banked away when you're born. You can't generate or make any more. You can get a little bit more energy by sleeping more or eating better, but generally speaking, you can't really make much more. Now, every day, whether you like it or not, you spend a very small percentage of these finite currencies. And you spend a little every day until you die. And when you've got no energy and time left to spend, you perish. Whether you succeed or fail in life is simply down to how well you spend your energy and time. And you want to imagine that focus is a bargaining power or a coupon that you can use to get way more for your spend. So for example, I'm waking up today and I know for a fact that I'm going to spend 24 hours out of my time account and 3,000 calories out of my energy account. I know that I'm going to spend those things regardless, just by living. Even if I just lay around, if I just lay around, maybe I'll spend half the energy and you can conserve energy and spend more on other days and stuff like that. But just by laying around, it doesn't matter what I'm doing today. It doesn't matter if I'm working. It doesn't matter if I'm paying the Sistine Chapel or, watching Peaky Blinders all day. I'm going to spend this energy and time no matter what. And so focus is essentially it's a bargaining power. Focus is, you get way more for your spend by using focus, okay? It's like a coupon that makes your energy and time go further. So for example, today, I finished off, all I've done today is finish off this document, and now I'm recording this document. And so that's where my energy and time has gone today. And my energy and time has gone into something that gives me leverage that I can use to create more value for people, which means I can solve more problems, alleviate more pain, and make more money. So that's how you have to look at focus. It's a bargaining power. It's a coupon. If you spend your energy and time on the same thing every day, then you're going to start to get good at that thing. And then maybe if you get good at that thing, you can start to sell that thing, or you can start to use that thing to make money. But if you spend your energy and time on useless stuff every day and you're just doing lots of different things that don't really matter, then you're not really going to do anything at all. So life is really just energy plus time multiplied by focus. And successful people, all they do is they know how to concentrate their energy and time. And when they concentrate it into one thing for a long time, they win. It's very simple. So all I've been doing with my energy and time bank accounts is investing them into high ticket client acquisition knowledge for the last 5 years. Or really, to use a broader term, I've been taking these bank accounts and I've been investing all the money I have every day from these two accounts into my business. And that's all I've really put them into. Sure, every now and then I put them into a relationship or a friendship or a dinner or a holiday or I'm reading something or whatever. It's not always there, but pretty much that's all I've done. And so when you do that, it doesn't have to take long. 5 years in the scheme of things is not a long time, but you start to really destroy everyone when you learn to think like that. Think about it like this. So there's 3 people, person A, B, C. They're all given a book to read and they're all given 1 hour in which to do it. So in this 1 hour, they're all given a book, and the book has the same font, the same size font, it's the same language, it's the same everything. Person A reads 40 pages. Person B reads 10 pages and person C reads 80 pages. Well, hang on a minute. They all had the same amount of time, so why do their results differ so much? Like, they all had the same time and energy. Let's say they all ate the same things, they all slept the same, so they all have identical time and energy. So what the hell's going on? Well, what we can see is that it's not just about time or energy, it's about focus. Because what we've measured here is a unit of focus. So we can get this from how often someone gets distracted. So if person A spends an hour on the book, but has a focus unit of 4, then they can read 40 pages. But if person B has an hour on the book and they have a unit of 1, which means they're just getting distracted all the time, then they can only read 10 pages. So they have to they're reading and then a thought crops into their brain and they have to go back to the earlier line and they just can't they're just sort of like, oh, I can't get through it. And then they're reading again and then they start thinking about something else, or they start singing a song, or they just check their phone quickly, and then before you know it, they spend 10 minutes of their time watching a YouTube video, then they come back because they have to have a break because they're so stupid, right? And then person C might spend an hour with a unit focus of 8 and read 80 pages. So focus is the force multiplier. This is my point here. It's a bargaining power. It concentrates, it compounds the things in these bank accounts. If you're given 1 hour, in 1 hour, for example, if you took me, for example, I know that in 1 hour, I could probably do 8 times the work of a normal human being. Probably even more than that. Dude, if you sat me down, if you said to me, Charlie, right, I'm going to give you an hour to create a PDF on, client acquisition. And then you sat someone else down and you said, okay, I'm going to give you an hour, just an average normal person with a normal brain doing normal things, just an average, TikTok brainer, whatever. And you sat that person down, you said, okay, I'm going to give you an hour to create a PDF about something that you like or something let's say that it's just some random 20-year-old dude that likes to play League of Legends, right? And so he's going to make a PDF about League of Legends. Well, and we were both allowed to we work as we normally would. I would absolutely eviscerate him if he was just a normal person. I would get 10 times the amount of, I could make so much more. And I'm not saying that because oh, look at me, I can more focus more than the average person. But the point is I've trained myself to get more done in less time. And it's no surprise that I'm more successful than the average person, and significantly so, because I can literally do 8 times the work of a normal person in 1 hour. So of course, and if you compound that over time and you keep doing that every single day for 30 years, then it's no surprise that you can have a net worth of 1 billion while someone else is worth $1, because it just compounds. So person A here is 4 times more successful than person B, and person C is 8 times more successful than person B. It's because of focus. It's also true in business. So, let's say person A, B, and C are each given a year in business. And person A is macro focus unit 1, which means that they're trying to start lots of different businesses, and they haven't picked it. It takes them 3 months to pick a niche. And then they're spending all their time watching podcasts and crap, and they don't really do anything. Well, they might make 1K a month after a year. And let's say person B, they're a little better, but they're still neurotic and weird, and they don't really make any decisions or do anything. So they might have a 2.5 focus, and that takes them to 2.5K a month. But then you might find person C is in business for a year, and all they do all day, every day, is just make 500 cold calls. They pick their niche within 3 days. They're offered to find immediately. They understand acquisition genesis. They blast through the program in a month or 2. And then they just execute on what they remembered from the program non-stop for 12 months. Well, they're going to get to 10K a month. And dude, this is a trite example. I've seen people go with the program, with Easy Grow. If we look at this here, and I come to Imperium, and we look at our results page, I've seen people go from 0 to 100 grand a month real fast. A lot of people here, you can see on the results pages, these are people that either sometimes have existing businesses or start from brand new. Luca here went from 0 to 40K a month in 5 months. The dude knew how to focus, right? Same with Eric Cavallaz. Went from 0 to 30K a month in 6 months. The dude just knew how to focus. He just did the thing that mattered. And all of these people here, you can see these time frames are pretty insane. It's typically sub 12 months, adding anywhere between 10 to 80 grand a month in new income. It's kind of insane how well this thing works if you know how to focus, okay? And like, I know that we've got even better results than this. Like, we've got a client called Cindy who started at 2K a month, and now like 2.5 years later, she's doing 250 grand a month. And it's just focus. So it's pretty insane. And it doesn't even matter if person A and B had triple the time that person C had. Because if person A and B spent 3 years in business with these units of focus, this is what they'd make. But if person C spent only 1 year in business, so like a third of the time, but 9 times the focus, well, they're going to make like 9K a month. Like, focus is the most important thing. It's because you can't compete on this. You can't get more time than someone, and you can just about get a little bit more energy than someone. It's not, those aren't the points of leverage. The point of leverage is how well you can focus. How well can you just do one thing and concentrate these resources time and time again, over and over again, relentlessly, tirelessly, until you have destroyed everyone. Like, you know, you wonder, like I get this a lot with the program. People say to me, Charlie, how the hell do you make such good videos? Like, why is your program so much better than everybody else's? It's because all I've done for the last 18 months is work on it. Every day, thinking about it, building it, making the PDFs, brainstorming ideas, creating videos that sometimes I don't even post. Like, you know, troubleshooting, like, it's just focus. Like, our product is probably 10 times better than the next one. And it's because I put 10 times more focus into it than anybody else. If someone came along, you know, if you want to know how to beat me, this is how you do it. And by all means, you can try, because I like competition and I want you to hold me accountable to this. If you want to beat me, you just have to make a better product than me. And the way you're going to do that is by spending more time on it than me and focusing on it more than me. I mean, you can try and do that if you want to. Like, by all means, like, you're going to have a pretty tough time to do it, because like I've nearly hospitalized myself for this damn program, but you get the point. So what is focus? Well, it's really the act of isolating the thing that matters and then concentrating all your time and energy into that thing. If you put your time and energy into lots of different things, lots of different businesses, hobbies, sports, niches, products, etc., then you'll make small amounts of progress in lots of different directions and you'll be average everywhere. But if you put your energy and time into one thing, into one business, one hobby, one niche, one product, etc., well, then you'll make huge amounts of progress in one direction and be great somewhere. Example, I make $1 million a month with one product. I know other people that make $1 million a month, but they have like 4 or 5 products. I know who I'd rather be. I'd rather have one bloody amazing thing than like 4 average things. Would you rather be average everywhere or great somewhere? I know my answer. The rule exists everywhere. Products, reading, relationships, studies, niches, hobbies, business models, mentors, goals, girlfriends, boyfriends, relationships, family. One thing. Concentrating resources into one thing. And in a second, I'm going to explain what things to look at and what things to focus on. Because if we understand that focus is leverage, and then we focus on high leverage activities, well, then we have double leverage, and then we really destroy everyone. Because it's enough just to focus more than everyone. It's enough learning how to focus more than the average person. But if you learn how to focus on asymmetries, which are activities that basically give you insane leverage in business, and you learn how to focus on the needle movers, then not only are you going to destroy everyone here, but you can basically like multiply this thing by like 10. And then you are gone. You are just going to annihilate. So we have macro and micro focus. So micro focus is basically like, focus really is just not getting distracted. And so you can focus in the micro. Like, for example, in the minute or the hour. So I'm talking about focus on both levels here. So if you've been watching this video and you haven't checked your phone, or like you're not clicking around multiple tabs, or like you're not listening to the MP3 version whilst going for a walk, or you know, you're not trying to do something else at the same time, then you're focused on this video without any distractions. And I can tell you right now that like if you're not focused on this video, then you're kind of screwed, man, woman, person, because if you can't sit down and listen to someone like who's got exactly where you want to be, tell you exactly how to get there without your brain getting distracted and going somewhere weird, how the hell are you going to build a business? Like, it's way harder to build a company and create value and be successful than it is to just sit down and put your eyeballs onto a screen for 3 hours. Christ, like I see this people like people like in the program before being like, how do you watch the videos? Like they're 3 hours long. I'm like, dude, you can't watch a 3-hour video. Like, how on earth are you going to build a business? You know, it's way harder than this. So that's the micro focus in the hour. That's what you've been doing recently. as of watching this video. And the macro focus. So this is in the year or in the decade or the century. You're focused on this business without any distractions. So for example, for the last 3 years, I've been focused on one niche, on one product, without getting distracted by other products or other niches. Or another example of macro focus for me, in the last 3 years, I've just been focused on making one YouTube channel. I haven't made multiple YouTube channels and got all weird and complicated with that. I just had one. So, another example of macro focus could be, let's say that over the course of a decade, you just run every day and you get really good at running. But if you're doing loads of sports, you're going to get half decent at some of them, but not great at one. So if you want to win and you want to destroy everyone, it's just macro focus for 5 years. So you should have the micro focus down. If you can't sit and work undistracted for hours on end, you have no hope of building an 8-figure machine. You're watching a video about how to scale a business to $1 million a month. If you can't sit and just watch the video, well, you don't quite qualify, my friend. That's how it goes. So macro focus is about avoiding shiny objects, saying no to everything that isn't contributing towards the goal, sticking to your niche, solving one problem with one product for one person. Now, at this point, I hear you saying, well, yeah, that's great, Charlie, but what do I focus on? Okay, well, now I understand the importance of focus and the weight of it. What do I actually focus on? Well, it's the Polaris Star. So the Polaris Star is your goal. It's your vision, your mission, and then your goal. Now, right now, you should have set a vision and mission. Now, I'm aware of if you're watching this in Acquisition Genesis, then you won't have set a vision and mission because you're not there yet. So don't worry about that. But if you are in Consulting Nirvana, then you should have done this. Now it's time to set a scaling financial goal related to the business that facilitates the achievement of the vision and mission. So really, this is just setting a goal. So you should have a number in your head as to what you want to get to. And by the way, I know that we're talking about scale here, but if you just want to get to 10 grand a month, that's fine. That's your Polaris Star. Don't be intimidated by me saying that 10 grand a month is not scale. It's not scale, I can tell you that. Scale is $1 million a month, $2 million a month, $3 million a month, at least in this online space. In the grand scheme of things, scale is really like $1 trillion company. And $1 million a month is absolutely laughable. But in this online world, the peak of scale is like a mil a month, 2 mil a month, right? So don't be intimidated or worried if your goal is just to make 30K a month. That's not my point. The point here is that you need to have a Polaris Star. So you need to have a goal. Polaris Star is your guiding light. Because as we know, you should know this, in ancient times when sailors get lost at sea, they'd use the Polaris Star to get their bearings. It would be the cornerstone of the navigation system to find their way home. And the same's got to be true for you and your business. Your Polaris Star must rule your decision making. Every decision you make for the business must be made with the question of, does it get me closer to my goal? So now we're going to talk about asymmetries. Because the question is, well, okay, what do I focus on? And the real thing is that you want to focus on the point of leverage. You want to focus on the thing that you can work on, that by you working on it moves you closest towards your goal. So how do we define leverage? Well, leverage is doing something that moves you closer towards your goal. And there's a million things that you can do, but there's only a few things that will move you very close towards your goal. So for example, let's visualize this metaphorically. Let's say that your goal is 100 meters away. And you've got 3 things you can do. Thing number 1 moves you 1 meter towards your goal. Thing number 2 moves you 20 meters towards your goal. And thing number 3 moves you 60 meters towards your goal. Which thing makes the most sense to focus on? Well, it's probably thing number 3. However, we can caveat this, because let's say that thing number 2 takes you 5 minutes to do, but moves you 20 meters. But thing number 3 takes you 6 years to do, but moves you 60 meters. Well, it makes sense for you to do thing number 2, because if you do thing number 2 3 times, which is 15 minutes of work, then you're going to move 60 meters. But if you do thing number 3 once, it's going to take you 6 years. So it's not just about how far something moves you towards your goal, it's about how much energy and time it requires for you to do it as well. It's not only about progression, but about input. And we can measure this on input and output. So let me explain asymmetries to you. So once you've defined your Polaris Star, you need to figure out what gives you the most leverage to achieve it. What should you focus on, and where should your time and energy go? You want to learn to focus on asymmetries. So knowing how to concentrate your time and energy is all about understanding asymmetries. So what is an asymmetry? What the hell is this weird word? Well, asymmetry as a definition, asymmetry means disproportionate input to output. So it means putting very little into something to get a lot out of it. And I'm going to explain this in a second. So for example, if you put $1 into a slot machine and you received $100 out of that slot machine for that $1, then that would be considered an asymmetric slot machine. Now, obviously slot machines are rigged, but let's just say that every time you put $1 in, you got $100 out. That's asymmetry. If you were smart, you'd take the $100 and you put them all back into the machine, and then you'd get, $1,000 out each time. And then you'd put the $10,000 you just made and put it back in until you became like the richest person in the world. And that's kind of what these info businesses are after a while. And asymmetries are certain things in your business that you can work on, whereby the output measured as the progress towards your goal is extremely disproportionate to the input, which is the time and energy required to do it. So think of it and visualize it like this. Here's an asymmetry. Little input, big output. It's where we don't put much in. And remember, the only thing we can really put in, the only thing we have to give to our business really is our time and energy. So the input in this case is quite small. It's not a huge amount of time and energy, but the output as a result of this input of time and energy, the output of this activity is extremely large, and it's disproportionate, you can see. So the output, which is what we've got out, which is basically the progress towards our goal, is significantly greater than the cost of doing it. So what we're trying to do in business is we're trying to look for these activities where we can put as little in as possible to get as much out as possible. So small input of time and energy, huge output of progression towards goal. How do we measure leverage? It's how much it moves us towards our goal. But leverage is also measured not only by progress towards our goal, but how little energy and time it costs us to get there. Remember the example. I'd rather take option 2, which is to move 20 meters every 5 minutes, than option 3, which is 60 meters every 6 years. And the thing about this is we can also invert this to understand anti-asymmetry. And this is where most people put their time and energy. This is where most people don't understand. This is why people are very easy to beat, by the way, once you understand how to think better than them. It's not about the offer, and it's not about the copy, and it's not about the script. I know you think it is, but it's about understanding how to think. And if you can think clearer, and you have a better brain than the people that you're competing against, you'll beat them. Simple as. So in this example, anti-asymmetry, we do not want anti-asymmetry. This is like a big bad thing. This is where we put a lot of time and energy into something, but we get very, very, very little output. So you can see here the input, the cost of our time and energy is high, but the output or the progress towards our goal is really little. It's tiny. So in the example I gave you, the metaphor, where there might be option 1, which moves you 1 meter towards your goal, but let's say that option 1 takes you a year to complete and you move 1 meter. That's a lot of time and energy for very, very, very little reward. So it's still disproportionate, but it's just in reverse. We want asymmetries, where we can put little in and get a lot out, and we do not want anti-asymmetries, where we put a lot in and we get a little out. Now, in my business, if you're wondering what the main asymmetry I focus on, it's the product. Really, all I do with my day these days, for the last few months, last few years really, is just working on the product. And so the input for my product is a lot. Like I put nearly all my time and energy into that, but it's still disproportionate. Just because I use 24 hours a day and 3,000 calories a day of my energy into my product and thinking about it and working on it, that's all my time. So this thing is as big as it can be. Like the asymmetry is ridiculous. Like I'm putting in all of my stuff into this product. Everything's going into it. Every ounce of time and energy I have. But the reward is huge. Like the output is massive. The progress towards my goal, which is to make client acquisition easy, my vision, and to get to like 2-3 mil a month, like it's huge. Like it's insane. I can just sacrifice like all of my time and energy for like my vision, and I'll actually achieve it if I do this product thing. So don't be fooled into thinking that like an asymmetry has to be about putting a tiny amount in, because it's about the proportion. It's about the contrast. If you put all your time and energy into one thing, all of it, and that thing made you like, I don't know, like 30 mil a year, well, it's probably worth doing to a degree until you find something better, right? So yeah, just a quick note on that. It's not just about putting a tiny amount in. It's about getting way more out than you put in proportion. So I'm going to give you some examples of asymmetries. So like the Carolina Reaper pepper. Like if I won't bother Googling it. You can Google it. You get like these really hot chilies, really hot peppers. Well, the Carolina Reaper is the world's hottest pepper. And if you ate a tiny piece of this, like I'm talking like a 1 centimeter cubed, like a tiny piece of Carolina Reaper, you would burn your mouth to a crisp. Like a tiny amount of Carolina Reaper will cause an extreme amount of pain. So this is an asymmetry. It's a small input, it's a small thing, and it's an extreme output. Small piece of pepper, extreme pain. In contrast, like if you ate a whole bell pepper, like a big pepper, you'd feel absolutely no pain. And that's a big input for very little pain. Another example could be one offensive word could cause more offense than 1,000 offensive words. So if you've got one person and there's one word that really upsets them, and it takes you all of, let's say I'm not saying you should do this. This is not the point I'm making. But let's say that you wanted to upset someone, right? Which is obviously not a nice thing to do. I'm not encouraging you to do it at all. So don't uncontextualize this. But if you wanted to upset someone, like you could throw like 1,000 insulting words at them, but there might just be one word that really, really upsets them. And so instead of focusing on like spending hours with 1,000 words, you could say one word in like 2 seconds and completely infuriate that person. Or you could buy someone a tiny gift, and then that might mean they hold you in extremely high regard for the rest of their lives. So you could spend $5 on someone and have that person as a friend forever just because you spent $5. Or you could approach one random woman or man in the street, and that could lead to you having a happy marriage. Or maybe you meditate for 10 minutes a day, and that makes you 3 times more efficient at work. Or maybe you just cut out one type of food and you cure 80% of your health problems. Or maybe, this is another example, like if you want to get drunk, like if you drink 200 milliliters of vodka, you're going to get drunk real fast and way more than if you drank a liter of beer, right? So, this is 200 milliliters is like a 20% of the liquid volume, but it's probably going to get you way more fucked way faster. And unfortunately, I can attest to this one from my university days. And one random social exchange on public transport could get you your dream career. So you could just be on the train and you could just say hi to some random person and talk to them for 5 minutes. And then out of nowhere, you get an email like a year later saying, hey, do you remember me? I've got this job for you. Like it took you 5 minutes and you get your dream career. So these are asymmetries. Tiny, tiny, tiny thing going in, huge thing coming out. Some other examples. So I could make one YouTube video in 25 minutes and book 500 appointments. I've done this before. I've made like videos that have booked hundreds of appointments. So this could be like 400 grand in revenue for 25 minutes of work. Not bad. Or I could spend 5 minutes on a YouTube thumbnail and get double the views. Or I could make one hire, like one small hire that might take me like a week. Well, I can actually, this is literally what happened in my business. So I made one hire, it took me 1 month. This was my sales manager. And it took me from 400K a month to $1 million a month. Like 1 month of work looking for one sales manager added 600K a month in monthly income. And 1 week of work, well actually now it's been like 2 to 3 weeks of work, to be quite frank. Now I'm going to just format that. So 2 to 3 weeks of work could in theory add $1 billion to the market. So, if by watching this video, I help 100 people get to $10 million a year, then in theory, I've added $1 billion in new yearly revenue to the market. And that's how you get rewarded. Markets love people that grow them. So, it could literally be the case that just 2-3 weeks of work contributes to another $1 billion in added value to the market. That's a huge asymmetry. That's 2 to 3 works for $1 billion. Now, obviously, I'm not going to make that $1 billion. I'm not deluded in that sense, but you get the point. Now, I could spend 2 minutes on the funnel tweak and increase appointments by 2x. Likewise, I could spend 2 minutes on the funnel tweak and destroy my appointments by 2x. So just be careful there. Imperium's offer took me 2 to 3 days to get straight, but books us 1,500 calls a month. 2 to 3 days for like 30K appointments a year. Not bad. And 20 hours of mindset training made me a millionaire. Or every hour I spend on my program brings thousands of people close towards their goals. So, what you're trying to do, like understanding that focus is leverage is one thing, because focus is leverage. Like you can multiply your efforts and multiply your time and get further and further towards your goal just by learning how to not get distracted and stay focused on one thing and concentrate the resources you have. But when you concentrate those resources and you focus on asymmetries, not only do you have the power and leverage of focus, but you also have the power and leverage of asymmetry, which means your progress towards your goal is so much faster. So when you combine focus and you combine asymmetries, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like I can attest to this myself, having experienced this firsthand, just how like it's apocalyptic. It really is. You'll just end the world like, in a good way. Like you'll end the market. You will be the end game. You will be the final boss. You will be the person that any new person comes into the market and thinks, bloody hell, I've got to compete with him. I know this happens with my market. Like some of my clients like, oh, I kind of want to help people with client acquisition, but I've got to compete with you. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Like I'm kind of frightened by that. I'm like, this is what happens when you just focus on asymmetries. It's pretty damn good stuff. The real issue, is that most people in their business, they spend their time on anti-asymmetrical activities. So most people are focused on building websites, messing around with softwares, living a crazy lifestyle, just a load of crap. Like, it baffles me, man. I mean, it doesn't, because people just don't understand. But like, you know, so there might be someone that spends like, you know, like 2 months on their website. That's a lot of time and energy. That's like, you know, 15% or whatever of your year. And then they build this website and then like no one goes to it because no one knows who they are. Like, it's just like, what the hell's the point in that? Like, mate, if you look at my website, I built this in like 6 hours. Like, sure, the results page took some time to update, but like, it's crap. But that's because there's no leverage here. There's no leverage in websites. All a website needs to do is take someone through to your funnel. It doesn't, what else do you need? Like, this is the thing. It's the same thing with like, you know, like all these softwares that people buy and like, you know, people who like, you know, spend all their time on social media. I don't really know what people do these days because I've spent so long avoiding anti-asymmetrical activities that I just don't know. I don't even know what they are anymore. God knows what people get up to, like networking is another example. Now, networking can be very effective if you're in a room with people that you want to be in a room with, but, you know, just like rocking up to your local networking event, like what on earth are you doing? Like if there was a networking event for info entrepreneurs that were doing $1 million a month or more, I'd be at that networking event. I'd be like, okay, I'll go there because I can actually get things from these people and learn things. But just rocking up to like, you know, try and pitch your local accountant to $300 website. Like, that's not leverage, man. Come on. Like, think about these things. Find the asymmetries. Find the biggest points of leverage, the things that move you closest towards your goal that require the least amount of time and energy, or at least little time and energy in proportion to the outcome, and you'll be way more successful. Like, another one is like the lifestyle thing. You know, like I see people who they think that the way to get what they want in their business is to like, you know, put Instagram stories of them on boats with like supermodels. And it's like, no one gives a shit, man. Like, yeah, you'll sell some impressionable teenagers into $1,000 course, but really? Like, I know a lot of the people that have those lifestyles, by the way, and a lot of them, they have it in check. The ones that do well and the ones that are successful and the ones that show the lifestyle off as a marketing strategy and that actually do make like 10, 20, 30, 40 mil a year, they have it in check where they've still got the operational business knowledge to get clients and keep them, build teams and build infrastructures, etc., etc. So I'm not crapping on the lifestyle thing, but I am telling you that most people who do it, they don't get it. Some of them do, very few, and you'll know who I'm talking about. Asymmetry is leverage, asymmetric leverage, little in, lots out. If you can learn to isolate and conquer asymmetries, you will rule your market. The question is, Charlie, the question is this: where and how do you find asymmetries and figure out where to concentrate your focus? So you got time, you got energy to spend. You can focus now, you can concentrate it, but how do we find these asymmetries? I've given you a couple of examples, but how do we reveal them? How do we know what to work on? How do we know where the leverage is? Well, yours truly, I made a resource. So the asymmetries in your business are there, and they're hidden in plain sight. The things that you need to work on, they're pretty damn obvious, but you might not see them yet. In fact, we've already covered them in this video. They can be measured. If you recall the conditions required for scale, you'll know what I'm talking about. So your goal is to scale, right? Your goal is to make a ton of money and print money and create the infinite money glitch. Okay? So that's your goal. So what we need to do is we need to isolate the activities that move you closest towards that goal as fast as possible. And so what are the conditions for scale, for growth? Oh, I remember. If we come back up here, these things. These are the things that you should be focused on. Finding these are the asymmetries. So you can see how I'm coming full circle here. Everything I've explained has an intent. It's like the Karate Kid, wax on, wax off sort of thing. Isolating specific conditions, working on them until they're favorable, and then moving on to the next until you have them all lined up and ready to scale by increasing input volume. That is asymmetric leverage. Metrics reveal asymmetry. The clue's even in the name, for crying out loud. I think that's a coincidence, but it's kind of cool. These are the asymmetric points of leverage you have for rapid explosive scale. Use the below table to find asymmetrical points of leverage in your business and achieve your goal. Now, once again, you're probably watching this from Acquisition Genesis at the beginning, before Consultant Nirvana. So the asymmetries I'm about to show you are for info businesses. So to repeat, Consultant Nirvana is designed to help you create an info product and scale an info business to $100 to $1 million a month, right? To 100 grand a month, $1 million a month. And what I'm about to show you are asymmetries specifically for info businesses. Now, what this means is that if you're running an agency, or if you're running a personalized one-on-one coaching offer and you're not yet at the high ticket info model, you can still look at these and you can still take inspiration from these, but these might not be the things that you have to focus on, because all you should be focused on right now is getting to Consultant Nirvana. Because right now, the most asymmetric thing you can do for your income is figuring out how to sign 15 clients, or at least if you've done the thing for yourself, you can go straight to Consultant Nirvana. So that's another thing. If you have done, if let's say, for example, that you are trying to, you have solved the problem yourself. So say, for example, you are an accountant and you've already built a 7-figure accounting practice. Well, you qualify to go to Consultant Nirvana because you've already done it yourself. But if you haven't done it for yourself, then you don't qualify until you've helped 15 people do it successfully. Once you've helped 15 people do it successfully, you move to Consultant Nirvana. I can tell you, and I promise you this, the most asymmetric thing that you can focus on right now is getting to Consultant Nirvana. So I don't want you to concern yourself with these things here. All I want you to concern yourself with is figuring out how to actually solve the problem you say you can solve for 15 people, figuring out how to get enough clients and sales calls to just test it and make it happen. And once you've done it successfully for 15 people, then you can move to Consultant Nirvana. Once you've moved to Consultant Nirvana, you can build the program, build the product around your knowledge. And then as you start scaling, then you come back to this video and then you focus on these things. So I'm going to tell you this now. You're going to watch this video now in Acquisition Genesis. You should be watching this video in Acquisition Genesis before you rewatch it in Consultant Nirvana. But once you finish this video and you move through Acquisition Genesis and you continue on your journey, you're going to come back to this video in phase 4 of Consultant Nirvana, and you're going to be tempted to skip it because you've already seen it. Do not. This is information that you must watch twice. This is information that I have read over and considered and thought about for years and years every single day. So don't make the mistake of thinking that you can just skip it. But that's my point. These are the asymmetries to scale to $1 million a month or 100 grand a month, but you don't have to focus on them now, because if you want to scale, all you have to do is focus on getting to Consultant Nirvana. Now, you might have bought this program and you don't want to start an info business. You just want to build an agency and get to 20, 30K a month. That's absolutely fine. In that case, you can just ignore this bit, okay? So here's a table of asymmetries. So here are some validity checks, because you can't really complete this table unless you've signed 30 clients and you've booked 120 appointments and 3 to 6 months have elapsed, which is the longest length of your payment plan. So if you've got a payment plan of, say, 6 months, then you need to let at least 6 months elapse on these 30 clients before you can determine the metrics, because we're going to be talking about average order value and lifetime value and return on ad spend. Okay? And you can't know that until you've had the chance to actually fully let your payment plan collect on everything. So in essence, this is what qualifies you to scale: 30 clients, 120 appointments. And until you've done these numbers and got these things in place, all the numbers and averages that you have, they don't represent a large enough data set to actually present an average properly to you. We have no regression to the mean until we've actually got validity with these numbers. So these are ranked in order of importance. So I've actually ranked the most asymmetric metric, tongue twister there. I've ranked the most asymmetric metric at the top for you, as you can see. So I've basically taken what I put here into a table for you in order of importance. So we'll just come back down to where we were. I think we were here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And so basically you want to put your metric in here and contrast it to the metric that's required for scale. And I've set these conditions based on what has worked for me and what I've seen work for other people. I've spoken to a lot of people at 8 figures, and it's all pretty unanimous that these are the numbers. So you can trust these numbers as actual accuracies. And so if you want to get to $1 million a month, or 500 grand a month, or 250 grand a month, or 100 grand a month, all you need to do is find these numbers. That's all you need to do. That is your priority. That is your to-do list. That those are your initiatives. It's not building a website. It's not building a funnel. You do whatever you have to do to find these numbers. When you learn and understand that a business is nothing but a collection of numbers, and if all those numbers line up in the right way, you will become maliciously successful. I don't mean malicious in a bad way. I just mean malicious in the sense that you could destroy everyone if you wanted to. That's all it is. It's just numbers. It's spreadsheets. And if you get those numbers lined up properly, you will absolutely eviscerate the competition. So, refund rate. Dispute rate, less than 2.5%. Nightmare rate, less than 10%. What's the nightmare rate? It's how many clients make you want to pull your hair out. If more than 10% of them do, you're not ready. Collection rate, more than or equal to 50%. Offer validity, you've booked at least 120 appointments. Profit margin, equal to or more than 50%. Average order value of price, right? So your initial upfront cash collection on all your sales must be at least 25% of your entire price. Cost per strategy session or cost per call on ads, no more than $200. Outbound appointment booking, no less than 2.5%. Ads day one ROAS, no less than 1.5x. Ads LTV ROAS, no less than 3x. Show up rate, no less than 50%. Your sales conversion rate, no less than 25%. And rep sales conversion rate, no less than 15%. And so what you're going to do when you're ready to do this, and you're not going to be ready to do this unless you have an info business and unless you've been through Consult on Nirvana, so don't worry about it now, but you will eventually have to do this if you want to get to $1 million a month, and that might not be your goal, and that's totally fine, but I'm telling you anyway. You're going to come in here, you're going to put your metrics in here, like so, and then all you're going to do is you're going to put whether or not it's in KPI. If it is in KPI, then you have found the favorable condition, and you do not have to worry about it. But if it is outside of KPI, then that is now a point of asymmetry for you. Okay, so once you've done this exercise, you'll have a clear list of everything that's in KPI and that's not. And then all you're going to do is you're going to go through that list in order of importance and sort those metrics out and correct them. And I'm going to show you the mental models on exactly how to do this in this video. And I know this video has already been quite long, but I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, okay? So, some of them won't apply. So, for example, if you're not running ads, and you're just scaling through outbound, which is kind of hard, so I wouldn't recommend that. But if you're not running ads, then you just put not applicable. Likewise, if you're just running ads and you've got no outbound, it's not applicable. And if you're not running ads, these won't be applicable. And if you haven't got a rep, this won't be applicable. But you should understand the point of the table. You put your metrics in here, you list if they're in KPI or not, and if they're not, now you have found an asymmetry and you know what to focus on. I promise you, as someone who's actually done it, this is the thing. It's knowing your numbers. It's looking at the numbers you need, and then it's matching the numbers you have to the numbers you need, and then increasing volume. That's how you grow a business. It is not wildly complicated. It is just numbers. Your business is a collection of spreadsheets, and if those spreadsheets all say the right thing, you have the conditions for scale, and you can increase the volume and make so much money that you don't know what to do with it. Okay? Now, if you're wondering where to find these metrics and maybe even what they mean, there's a key here. You know me, I like my detail. So if you need to know where to find these metrics and how to basically locate them within your business, I've actually explained where to find them here, and you'll be able to find them, okay? So that's the finding asymmetries exercise. So the conditions that are out of KPI are therefore your asymmetries. These are the things where it's going to cost you, it might cost you a significant amount of time and energy, But it's the disproportion of how close it's going to get you towards your goal is so extreme that it doesn't matter, right? So this is where you need to focus. There's nowhere else you need to focus. It's literally just the KPIs. It's the conditions of scale. I'm repeating myself over and over again because I must drill this into your brain, because I have your best interest at heart and I bloody love you as a client. Like, I truly appreciate and love you. And I just wish someone screamed this at me when I was starting, because I would have avoided so much damn blood, so much pain would have been avoided if someone just drilled this into me nonstop. It's results, it's offer, it's appointments, it's shows, it's sales, it's profit. You nail these things against these KPIs. You list out your KPIs, or you list out your metrics in contrast to the KPIs. And if you don't have them, there's your asymmetries. There, I have revealed the leverage. You now know, or you might not know now because you probably haven't got an info business, and you might not be at the point where you're scaling and you're ready to go yet. But when you are, you do this, and you can come and hug me when you get to $1 million a month, okay? So you work your way down the chart. This should be your to-do list for the next however many years it takes. That's all you should be focusing on, is getting these numbers in tow. Nothing else. No Instagram stories, no champagne, no crazy weird websites, no podcast visits, no no ego thing, no speaking gigs, no events, just the data. In later videos, we'll explore how to troubleshoot and fix these conditions, so you can sit tight for that. For now, we're going to finish the theory. And remember, all of these metrics, I've already figured out how to do myself. So throughout the program, oh God, there's a little voice crack for you after 2 hours into a recording. But throughout the program, all I'm doing is giving you systems that give assent to these key performance indicators. That's how you have to see this. I'm going to give you the sales script that converts at 25%. I'm going to give you the show system that gets 50% show rates or more. That might not sound like a lot, but it's all you need to scale. Trust me, it's what I've done. I'm going to give you the system that shows you how to get a 50% margin. I'm going to show you how to get the appointments for the offer collection, right? I'm going to show you how to build products that are insane that people don't ask for. Like, it's all here. Like, I'm going to give you the full $0 to $1 million a month package. I promise. And I know it's true because I've done it for myself. So sit tight. Okay, mic drop moment there. And really it just comes down to this quote from Archimedes. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. If you want to move the world, which is a pretty heavy thing to move, you just need big leverage. And big leverage comes from focus, and it comes from asymmetries. And when you combine focus and asymmetries, dude, you can move Saturn if you want. Christ, it's insane. So finally, I'm going to give you, well, not finally, I'm not even halfway through the damn thing yet, but I'm going to give you to conclude the focus thing, I'm going to give you an exercise called 100 units of time. This is a remarkably powerful exercise, and I strongly suggest you do it. So I actually was introduced to this by my mentor, Sam, a long time ago. And what 100 units of time will do is it will force you to take this more seriously, and it will force you, and it will basically encourage you to focus up. It will make you way more focused, and it will make you way more valued of your time. And what this exercise is designed to do is it's designed to basically make you more aware of what you're working on and where your time's going. And then what you can do is, once you know the asymmetries and what to focus on and what to work on, really it's just a question of like becoming more aware of where your time's going and putting more of that time into the things that move the needle into these asymmetries. So when doing this exercise, just live a normal week. Don't make any extra effort just because you're tracking your time. So it goes like this. So this is annoying to do, but the reward in proportion to the pain of doing it is very significant. I mean, talk about an asymmetry. This is one of them, right? So what you want to do is set an alarm to go off every 30 minutes during your waking day for 1 week. Every 30 minutes. So from the second you wake up to the second you go to sleep, have an alarm for 30 minutes. And then every 30 minutes, you want to note exactly what you were doing. So like pen and paper, or you can use a spreadsheet. And then you want to bucket your activities into categories. So like, for example, throughout the week, let's say one day you watch Netflix, then you're watching Disney Plus, and then you're watching Amazon Video another day. Like this would all just count towards shows or media. And then you want to label each 30-minute time slot as value or waste, calculate where your time is going, and then calculate how much time you're wasting. And this exercise will terrify you because all you have in life is time and you're wasting it probably. So you can use this resource here. And it's designed to look like this. You've got a whole week, You're going to have a timer go off every half an hour, every waking moment. You can see here. I don't think you're going to want to do it until that early in the morning, but you can adjust this accordingly, right? So, you come in here, let's say at 7 a.m., I'm just like, driving to gym. And then in category, I'd come here and I'd select driving. And this counts as waste. And if you're wondering what's value and waste, well, value is something that moves you towards your goal. And waste is something that doesn't move you towards your goal. So we can see here that driving is just a waste of time because it's not moving me towards my goal. Okay? And if you want to extend these categories out, you can just drag them down like this. If I just remove driving from here, I can just drag this down to get these categories. Same thing with this. If I just remove this, I can drag this like this. Okay? So you're going to come in here every day and you're going to log in every half an hour what you've been doing. And then I've got some categories in here. I've put a biological imperative. So this could be like showering or going to the toilet or sleeping or, I don't know, anything else that you do that like eating, food, etc., etc. Reading non-fiction. These are just the ones that I do, right? Although I don't do doom scrolling and aimless YouTube doesn't happen anymore. I just put some in that like I think a lot of you might do. So if you want to edit these categories to be more tailored towards your life, which you should, click this edit button and then you can basically add them or you can change them and delete them. So every day, half an hour, you put in what you do, you categorize it, and then you're listing it as value or waste. And then at the end of the week, what you're going to do is you can basically calculate how much time you're actually wasting. This will frighten the shit out of you. I do this all the time. Like I try and do this like, once every quarter, once every 6 months. And like, it is absolutely petrifying how much time goes to waste. And I've been doing this for some time now. So I'm still wasting time. And like, I've been doing this for years and I'm still inefficient. And when I started, like I was so inefficient, it hurt. Like it was dreadful. So, you want to see like, where can you get more time? Where can you get more of this? And the more time you get, the more focus you can have in that time, the more asymmetries you can work on, the closer you're going to move towards your goal. So you should do this. It's not going to be fun for a week, but trust me, do it. And until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. And that's a quote from Carl Jung, which basically means that like where our time goes and what we do with our time, it's a pretty unconscious affair. We're not typically aware or conscious of where our time goes. And until you become conscious of it, well, you're just floating through life. You're not really doing anything. So that's the focus thing. So that's the first discipline that we have to go through. And that's going to provide the context and the preparation for the next discipline, which is called throughput. Now, I say discipline, but really throughput's not a discipline of study. It's more of an abstraction. It's a mental model. Same with focus, but you get the point. So what is throughput? Well, I explained this briefly in, I believe, Morgan's acquisition systems theory. So you should be familiar with this diagram, or at least it should remind you somewhat of a previous video. But I'm now going to, like, if your mind's been blown already, like, I'm going to blow it again. Like, I'm hoping that you now get the whole what to work on, how to scale, how to create the foundations, and how to get leverage and get towards your goal faster than everybody else. But if that blew your mind, well, then this is going to really blow your mind. Like, you're not going to have any mind left to blow after this video. So there's 3 systems that must exist in your business and must be working successfully for scale to happen. So at a macro level, a business can really be boiled down to 3 systems. At first principle, like, what the hell is a business? At least one of these online businesses. Well, there's really only 3 things to it. It's acquisition, which is attention into leads, and then leads into appointments. It's conversion, which is taking those appointments and converting them into paying customers. And it's value delivery, which is delivering value to customers through your product. So we kind of touched on this at the beginning, where we also discussed how we need the infrastructure as well. But we don't really need the infrastructure, like, at first principle. Like, if you don't have the infrastructure, like the operational systems and stuff, then the business will break. But in terms of the flow of value through the business, in terms of the conversion from, if you remember this diagram we had here, the conversion from attention to profit, there's only really 3 systems that we need. And those systems are contained inside of this triangle. And if you get them right, then you can convert raw attention, which is just a human being basically fixating their prefrontal cortex onto your offer or your product for a very short period of time, into profit. That we can do this, and then we can start the infinite money glitch. So without further ado, let's talk about these systems. So it's a trifecta. So we can visualize these three systems with the pipe. So the pipe is the easiest way to visualize throughput. So think of your business like a pipe with three stages at a global level. So at the macro, 30,000 foot view, your business looks like this. The water represents value, and value flows through your business in three different pipes. So pipe 1 is acquisition. This is the first stage that someone has to go through to yield profit. And this is attention into interest, into appointment, into show. The second stage is conversion, which is taking someone who's showing up for an appointment and converting them into a prospect who's actually paid you money, so that you're converting them from prospect to client. And then pipe 3 is value delivery, where we take them from new client who we've onboarded to beloved legacy client who's got the exact result they want. So we're going all the way from stranger to person with the result they want, and the result of that will be profit. Now this flow of value from system to system is called throughput. Don't know why I put a weird little twang on the TH there, but I did, and it should help you remember it. Throughput. Don't know why I'm doing that, but it's been a long time in the recording already, as you can see. But it's throughput, okay? And the result of throughput is yield. So this is the thing that you get out of the system. Now, I don't want you to pay any attention to the red line or the blue line or the green line yet, because the red line obviously denotes a bottleneck or a lack of value flowing through the system. This doesn't denote that value delivery is a problem in everyone's business, although actually, ironically, it kind of is. This is just to demonstrate the different stages at which throughput can operate. You can see we start with a lot, and then typically as you work your way through your system in business, you'll start with like a lot of tension, and then you'll get a very few clients, and then you'll make a little bit of money. And then you just repeat the process to make a ton of money. And the more open these pipes are, the more value can flow, the easier it is. And obviously at the bottom here, we have latency, which represents time. So to go from attention to person with result could take a year. So it might take a year to add enough value to make any money. So this is obviously the global level at a 30,000 foot view. This is the entire business. Like really, this is your business. Simple, 3 stages. Now, just as we can visualize the throughput of a business at a macro bird's eye view, we can also see throughput at a local level. So, as I said, the red bar is a bottleneck, but for the sake of the examples given, I'm going to give you some more examples here. I don't want you to think that the third pipe is where the bottleneck always lies just because it's red. It's just because of the diagram, the example I'm giving you, okay? You can see here, it's the example. So let's look at this on a more local level, because this is the global level, this is the macro business thing. Now let's look at it more locally. Well, we can look at it on a local level in terms of acquisition. So the first pipe for acquisition is getting attention. The second type is converting the attention into interest. And the third pipe is turning the interest into appointments. And the yield of the acquisition system is appointments that actually show up. Now, note as well, there might be more than 3 pipes at a local level. This is just a model. So there's not always just going to be 3, there might be more. So the local level throughput of the conversion system, which is obviously the second stage in this business, so we can break the second pipe into 3 pipes, the first pipe into 3 pipes, is qualifying and discovering, pitching and answering questions, handling objections, and closing. So you can see here how it's a 3-step process. Now, once again, there might be more than 3 steps to this, like we might have to have negotiations or payment terms or whatever, but it's an abstraction, okay? And then we can once again look at the local level on value delivery. So once again, with this pipe here, we could break it into 3 pipes where, we have onboarding and information given, support and results. And it can get even more local than this. So you can take a local level and then get even more localized. So, I'm going to give you an example here. Typically each pipe contains another set of pipes that drives throughput at even more local level. So, here in the first pipe of our value delivery system is onboarding the client, as you can see here. So in order for us to get the client results, we have to onboard them, of course, through value delivery. And so, the flow of water here represents, the closed clients from the previous system, and it's flowing into the next pipe. So we're going from pipe 2 to pipe 3 here. But you can look at for example, all of these pipes have deeper, pipes to them. So let's look at this. Let's actually get specific here. So we take the onboarding pipe from value delivery. Well, we could look at onboarding on a more local level. So local level could be onboarding. So the first step of onboarding is taking the payment, then signing terms, then requesting access, and then watching the client watching the introduction video. So this could be the pipe inside of the onboarding pipe. But then inside of the onboarding pipe, you could have an even local pipe. You can. This is getting confusing, but you get the point. It can go even deeper and deeper into a local pipe. So inside of value delivery, we have onboarding. Inside of onboarding, we have signing terms. And inside of signing terms, we have finding and sending the template, the client approving the contract, storing the signed terms, and then the terms actually being completed. So this is another micro flow of value that must happen for someone to actually become a client. And then, and I'm hoping you get the point by now, it can go even deeper to a local level. So inside of this level, the client needs to approve the terms and sign. So inside of this pipe, we can have more pipes where the client receives the terms. Then they basically, through their email, they receive the terms, and then they might have any questions or objections about the terms. And then the sales rep is going to reply to them and answer any questions or objections, and then finally the client will approve and sign the terms. And so we have a pipe inside of a pipe, inside of a pipe, inside of a pipe, inside of another pipe, inside of another pipe, inside of a pipe. This is getting confusing. Bear with me for about 2 minutes, and I'm going to show you a diagram that will make this really easy for you to understand. Okay? But my point is that throughput exists not only on the macro level, i.e. acquisition, conversion, and value delivery and yield, but it exists all the way down to the micro level, to the client approving the terms. And you can bottleneck at any stage of this process. So this method of thinking, which is basically just getting to the core level of any system in your business, is imperative. Every business is simply the flow of value through a ton of different pipes or systems. And your company is compartmentalized into pipes like this. Every process in your business, relevant to the 3 big systems, is a pipe. If all the pipes are open and ready to receive value, then throughput will flow freely and you'll make a ton of money. So this is how throughput works. It's the flow of value through the pipeline to make money. So I can give you another example. So here's the pipeline of conversion actions required for people in my market to become a client through my YouTube organic attraction system. So here's the example you should be familiar with that I gave in Morgan's acquisition systems theory, where I explained the different actions that someone has to take in order to become a client through YouTube organic. First principle out, what do they have to do? Well, each stage here you could think represents a different pipe. And the value is, the water is flowing through this pipe and being converted from different stage to different stage until ultimately they pay. So each stage is like a mini pipe, and all the pipes are connected together. Value conversion from state to state flows through this big long pipe, which makes us money. Every single component and system of your business can be broken down like this into first principles, and it's a remarkably powerful way to think. Because now, you can define any problem really easily. So if your business isn't working, you can see exactly what's going on. So I'm going to give you a diagram that should make you, quite frankly, quite excited. So barrel, faucet, pipeline, bank. Trust me, it's not this diagram. I'm going to give you another one. Okay. So I want you to do this. I want to get metaphorical with you for a second here. I want you to visualize your market as a huge barrel of water. So just imagine that your niche in your market, big old barrel of water. In the same way that water needs to be filtered before it can be drank, this raw value needs to be converted many times before it can be cashed in on. So I'm sure if you were thirsty and you came across a random barrel of water in a dirty street somewhere, if you were going to drink that water, you'd probably filter it many, many times with a filtration system before you drank it. Okay? And the same thing is true with your market. There is a barrel, and in that barrel contains raw value. It's water that can be drunk, but that water has to be filtered and converted through many different things before it's safe to drink. It has to go through charcoal filtration. It might have to be chlorinated. It has to be converted many times into different forms before it's safe. Now, the rawest form of value straight from the barrel is attention. So this barrel here represents all of the attention in your market. Remember the diagram I showed you earlier with the system, where the first principal input of any business is the attention of a niche. This is the first thing. Obviously, you could say your energy and time is an input as well, but on the conversion mechanism level, the only thing that goes into your business is attention. And so, well, how do we visualize this and metaphorically understand it so we can use it? Well, we can understand that all of the people in your niche are barreled into one big barrel, and this is all the attention in your market represented as water. So I know this is abstract, I'm going to make it concrete in a second, but just imagine for a second, big old barrel full of water, and that water represents the attention of your niche. Now ads, content, and outreach are all faucets that you can attach to the bottom and turn on to start extracting the value in its raw form and start converting it. So somehow we need to tap into this barrel and let water leak out into a pipeline so that we can convert that water to make money. Now, this is all very abstract, so I promise I'm going somewhere with this, so let me explain. Are you ready to have your mind blown? Okay. What the hell is that, Charlie? Let me explain. To better explain, I've mapped every single pipe of the easy grow throughput from YouTube ads. So you know how we've talked about throughput here, where we've got all these different pipelines? What I've done here is I've taken the liberty of mapping every single pipe that I need to convert this value through to make money. And you can see I've got 3 stages here. I've got my acquisition, I've got my conversion, and I've got my value delivery. And so we're going to go through this diagram, and I'm going to explain how I convert raw value, which is attention in the market, how I extract that raw value and convert it through my pipeline to ultimately make profit. So let's have a look at this. You can find this as well. So this barrel is the market. This barrel represents, it's full of water, and that water represents attention. The raw value, the purest, rawest, raw material form of input for my business is attention. What I can do is I can attach a faucet or a tap to this barrel. And I can turn that tap on by running ads, making content, or doing outreach. So how do I get this attention? Well, I either need to run ads, make content, or do outreach. So when I have an outreach system or a content system or an ad system, it's like attaching a faucet to this barrel and turning it on to extract attention. And how much attention you extract depends on A, how much you spend, B, the quality of your content and how much you make, or C, how much outreach you actually do. So if I do 1 outreach, I extract 1 unit of attention. And so what I've done here is I've mapped EasyGrow's conversion journey from raw value, i.e. water from the barrel, all the way to money coming out into the bank, into profit, into the bank account. This is specifically for my paid ad system. So it might look a little bit different if I was running content or outreach, but I thought I'd just use a paid ads example because it's the easiest one to comprehend. So we have the barrel with the water, the attention. We have the faucet or the ads. I turn the faucet on. If I want to turn the faucet on more and get more water out, I spend more on ads. The water, i.e. the attention in its rawest form, flows into the first stage of the pipeline. The first stage of the pipeline is the hook. For my ads, I have to hook people. You've probably seen my ads before. Maybe you haven't, but it's the first 5 seconds. So if people are hooked properly, the water can flow through this pipe into the next pipe, which is where I then make them an offer. If the offer works, then they click on a link. If they click on the link and that works and the funnel works, they opt into the funnel. If the landing page works, they opt in. And then if the opt-in page works, they watch the VSL. Now, then a couple of things can happen here. If the VSL works, then they'll look at the Calendly form and schedule an appointment. And if it doesn't work, and they don't schedule an appointment, then I email them, retarget them, rehook them, and then get them to schedule again. So this is the first stage here of value conversion. So if we go up to schedule, I've gone from raw value, which is just pure attention in the niche. I've captured it with ads, and I've converted it through hook, offer, CTA, opt-in, VSL, emails, retarget, rehook, and Calendly form and schedule into a confirmed call, into a call. So at this point, we've gone from attention to call to appointment. Then I confirm the call, send a confirm email, get the rep to introduce themselves via email, send Calendly reminders, and then we get a show up. So these things here, confirm, introduce, Calendly, this is the conversion mechanism designed to actually get an appointment to show up. So there has to be these stages in this conversion of the value to get the show up. Because if I don't get a show, then nothing happens. There's no value can flow through the rest of the system. So that's the end of the conversion system. That's system 1 in yellow. We've gone from attention from the barrel to an actual appointment that showed up. So then we have to do the sales call. So we state the agenda as the first pipeline. If we don't do this properly and we completely screw the start of the sales call, then no more people can flow through the pipeline. So we have to get it right. Then we qualify, discover, pitch, answer questions. This is our sales process, by the way. Answer questions, then we pitch the price, then we handle objections, then we negotiate the payment term, then we do the financing or the payment, then we set their expectations, then we send over the contract to get them into the program, then they send the school request, then we configure Stripe, we wait 24 hours for obvious reasons. They might not be obvious, but there are reasons. And then we grant access. So what you can see here is this is our conversion system. So the input to the conversion system is the output of the acquisition system. And the input to the value delivery system is the output of the conversion system. So we've gone from raw attention from the market and we've converted it through the pipeline to the point where we now have a client and they're actually in the program. So now is the third and most important stage of this whole pipeline. Well, all the pipelines are pretty important, but you can see how obvious this is and how easy it is to actually understand. Like, this is my business. This is literally what I do. This is how I make money. Like, it's not this, I'm pulling back the curtain and just purely revealing this thing to you. So once someone has access to the program, we have to actually get them results. So we do this by having them watch the introduction video and make an introduction post. And then they watch Acquisition Genesis, which is what you're doing right now. And then they watch Self-Transcendence, which is what you're going to do next. And then you're either going to go and build outbound systems or go to Consultant Nirvana. If you go to Consultant Nirvana, if you qualify for this and you go, then you're going to build your program, launch your program, and then you're going to come back to the outbound systems. And then you're going to build those, and then you're going to start building sales systems to deal with the appointments you get from the outbound systems. Then you might build inbound systems and paid systems. And then this is the big one. This is a huge pipe. It's obviously not huge in terms of like its length, but this is a big one that people forget, is time. Once I've given you everything you need to get results and you've got the information and I've supported you properly, well, then I just have to give you some time. Because, you know, if you're making $3,000 a month right now, it might take you 12 months to get what you want. It might take you 12 months to get to $100,000 a month. Like, trust me, I've seen people do it before, right? Like, when you look at our client interviews, it's important to know that that's usually like 30% of the results we've actually got, because a lot of people don't want to be interviewed, which is fair enough. But we have to give it time. So, you know, we give the process time after having given the cause, and we have to wait for the effect. There's some latency in place there. But once time has elapsed, you'll get your first result. And then what will happen is you'll start to post wins. And then you'll do a trust pilot for us, I hope, if you get results. And then, you know, you might do a client interview. But then you'll get more results, and more results. And then it will come to the point where, you know, either you upsell into a mastermind, or you renew, or you don't trigger the guarantee, and then money is made. So the final stage in the pipeline, the final thing that can mess up is if you don't get results. And I know you will, because literally everyone that goes through this program gets results. So if you do the work, like, you'll be absolutely fine. But the way that Bo and I make money is when people upsell into the mastermind, which is, as of me recording this right now, you won't know about the mastermind if you're watching this now, but when you watch it in the future, you should know we've got one. Or renewal, or if just the guarantee is not triggered, which it never is because the program actually works. So when that happens, the money comes out into the bank. And so we go all the way from eyeball onto ad, which is literally just attention, represented by this here, all the way through this conversion system, acquisition system, through this conversion system, through this value delivery system, without skipping a single step, and then me and Bo make money. And then if you're smart, which we are, and which you should be, what you do is you take this money and you reinvest it back into getting more of this, and then you run it through again. And so when I showed you those metrics earlier, and when I told you that that's all you need to be successful, I truly meant it. Because you can map every single stage of this pipeline journey, usually with data. And if you can do that, you understand that making money with your business is just about fixing these pipes and getting the numbers in order, and then bam, you're successful. Like it's literally just this. This is how I make my money. This is how I've gone from zero, dead broke, like university dropout, living with my parents, with no money and no prospects and nothing, to nearly now, well, basically just over $1 million a month in like 6 years, 7 years. And if I knew this, like if I knew this at the very beginning, I probably would have done it a lot faster. So now I'm telling you this so that you can do it a lot faster, and then I can add more value and make more money. So you get the point. And my entire life consists of optimizing this pipeline and working on the pipe. So more value, more and more value can flow at a more and more optimal efficient rate. And really, if you're wondering like what I do with my time, well, I spend most of my time working on the product. Because, you know, it's like the more results I get you, the happier you are, the more likely you are to sell into the mastermind, the more likely you are to renew, and the more likely you are to not trigger the guarantee. Like no one triggers the guarantee because everyone gets the results. But also like, if you're watching this video right now and like you're set for renewal in like a year or whatever, or like you're looking at the mastermind, like, dude, if I get you to your goal, like, are you going to renew? Probably. Are you going to buy the mastermind? Probably. Like, you know, if you've given me X amount of money, which is the amount of money you've given me now, so you know how much money you've paid, right? And if I help you 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100x that money, which I know I can, then it probably makes sense for you to pay me again or to pay me more money to help you do it more. So like, this is what people do. You know, we get them results and they renew and we just make a ton of money. So you see how this works. Everything goes into the bank, and then that money is taken and it's reinvested and put back in. Obviously, you know, you keep a ton of this money into profit, but then you put more back into advertising, and you just cycle through this machine and again and again and again and again. And that's how it works. If I want to scale Easy Grow, all I have to do is increase the ad spend and the number of sales reps I have. Now, I'll do this slowly over time. You don't just randomly double your ad spend suddenly. You do it slowly over time. You're methodical, you're tactical. You introduce sales management systems. You know, you might have to introduce like qualification systems, or, you know, more sales reps, or you might have to scale the ads horizontally or start a new ad account or try a different platform. But you have to do it slowly and check for leaks or issues in the pipeline as you grow. You have to be diligent and vigilant of this pipeline and constantly keep an eye on it to know what's happening. So the question then becomes, okay, I get the pipeline thing, but what happens when one of these things bottlenecks? Like, it looks great and it looks fantastic in theory, but how do I fix this thing if at one stage, like one of the pipes is really thin? Like, what happens if, I don't know if I can actually amend this, but like, what happens if like suddenly out of nowhere, like one of these pipes just does this, where it doesn't let much value flow through because it's really small in comparison to the other ones? Well, fortunately enough for you, why is Myo not letting me undo that? That's rather annoying. I don't know why, but let's just replace it before we move on, because you're going to come to this bit like. So how do you know like how to fix a bottleneck? Because the only thing that's going to screw you up here, and the only thing that's going to reduce the flow of value through the pipeline and therefore completely screw you over, is like bottlenecks. You know, where one of these pipes is just like thin and doesn't let much value flow through. Basically, it's broken. Well, let's think about this. So let's talk about bottlenecks. So a bottleneck is a choke point in one of your pipes. It's a point that is essentially fundamentally broken, whereby whatever input is entered into it is not converting to an output at an optimal rate and will not allow value to flow through at a rate to be considered working. Now, a system, basically defined as a set of pipes, can only yield as much value as the tightest bottleneck will allow. So I'm telling you right now, you can have all of these pipes. There's 51 here. I think there's 51. I counted them, give or take. There's 51 pipes here. I could have 50 of these pipes flowing perfectly, but if one of them is bottlenecked, every single other pipe is therefore restricted to the one pipe that is bottlenecked. So it doesn't matter, like you're going to have 99% of these pipes can be absolutely fine, but if one of them is screwed, they're all screwed, especially if it's early on in the stage. You know, like say for example, like, you know, I got you into the program and, you know, every single client just didn't give it time. Every single client, like if, let's say a week went by after you joined the program and you hadn't got results. And then like you panicked and freaked out because I didn't set your expectations or the reps lied to you or whatever. And then if within 1 week, everyone asks for a refund, that's a bottleneck. The bottleneck would be the time thing. And then it doesn't matter, like I'm not going to make any money. Even though I've converted you all the way through this stage, I get right to the final hurdle. If this thing's tight, like, and it's not going to let value flow, then I'm not going to make any money. So you have to have, it's not that one pipe is more important than the other, it's that they all have to be flowing in tandem. Your job as an entrepreneur is essentially to identify, fix, and release bottlenecks inside your business. The faster you do this, the more efficient and scalable your business becomes. Visualized, we can imagine traffic merging from 3 lanes into 1 lane. The flow of traffic is fundamentally restricted to the point at which the least cars can pass through, and this bottleneck will prevent the flow of value and create a traffic jam. So if you want to think about what a bottleneck is in the real world, well, you can just think about a traffic jam and visualize it like this. Because, you know, the road allows 3 cars to flow through it, which is, you know, 3 units of value. But at this point, you know, due to poor design or whatever, or traffic, or like roadworks, all the cars have to funnel into 1 lane. And because of this, we have a backlog of value and not much value can flow through. And I'm sure you've experienced this before. So how do we identify a bottleneck? Well, we're using metrics and KPIs. So sorry if you can hear my chair squeaking around here. Been sat in the same position for 2 hours now, 2.5 hours. But you can use metrics and KPIs to define bottlenecks. So if you recall earlier, we set the KPIs for the favorable conditions required for scale. And, you know, based on that, you can find them here. So like I said to you, right, you're probably not going to do this exercise until you're at the point where you've done Consultant Nirvana, you're ready to scale. But the point is clear, you should understand for the future of your business that it's just about numbers. And so if one of these metrics is out of KPI, then you have a bottleneck. So bottlenecks and asymmetries in your business are kind of similar in regards to the fact that whatever is most bottlenecked is usually where the most asymmetric point of leverage is for your business. This means no matter how much the entire machine will be restricted at this point, no value or no volume can flow through. This is why you cannot scale until you've opened all these pipes and fixed these bottlenecks. And how far you are out of KPI depends on how tight the bottleneck is. So the question then becomes, well, how do we troubleshoot metrics and actually find bottlenecks? So like, you know, what I'm trying to do here is give you a full stack rationale of thinking. So like, how do we actually troubleshoot metrics? Like, how do we find bottlenecks? How do we identify them? Because I can tell you that most of fixing bottlenecks is identifying them. It's kind of like, I'm not sure which famous scientist said this. It might have been like Newton or Einstein or someone. But this quote says that like, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend the first 55 minutes understanding it and the last 5 minutes solving it. And what whoever it was, one of the famous scientists meant by that, like Newton or Einstein, I get them confused. What one of those scientists meant is like most of the solution, most of the problem solving is just done in the understanding. Like once you get really, really clear on what the problem actually is, solving it is usually pretty damn easy. It's just getting it out and exposed is the hard part. So bottleneck identification. So we use conversion rates to track the efficiency of conversion between pipes. And obviously these are represented as percentages. So if you take 100 calls and close 10, then your sales conversion rate is 10%. Now we can also measure the efficiency of conversion as a cost. And these are represented in dollar form. So for example, if you spend $10,000 and book 100 sales calls, then your cost per call is $100. We don't track metrics along all the pipes because some pipeline metrics are impossible to track. So, you know, I can tell you, for example, in the pipeline system, I do not have a metric on how many of my clients request to join my school group. Because I know that if someone's just paid me X amount of dollars, they're always going to request the school group. It's the same thing with like, you know, I don't have a metric to make sure that everyone's being granted access properly. Because they are. It just happens, right? Now, if I started to have a problem around access granting, I'd look at tracking it. But like another example is like, I don't have a metric on how many of my clients build my inbound systems because I just can't see. It's kind of the nature of the info thing. So I can't track this entire pipeline, but I can track keystone metrics along the way that allow me to determine whether value is flowing. So for example, like I can definitely track how many client interviews we get, and I can definitely track like how many mastermind upsells we get and how many first results on win posts we get and trust pilots we get. I can track these things, but I can also track how many intro posts we get. I can track how many people do Consult Nirvana. So, at different stages, I can see if value is flowing or not to determine whether it's like pipeline backed or not. So because we want to hone in and focus on the macro keystone metrics to move the needle. So the point I'm making here is you don't want to track every single little thing in the pipeline. You want to focus on what I call macro keystone metrics. So a macro keystone metric is basically one of these things here that really moves the needle. And it's the big boy metrics that you want to track. Because you don't want to track like how the rate at which people have been granted access, because it should be 100% anyway, right? So what is a macro keystone metric? Well, this is a metric that takes a measurement of the efficiency of an entire system within the pipeline. So this is essentially like a vital in the human body and takes an overall measurement of a certain piece of the business. For example, appointment booking rate is a macro keystone metric for cold outreach. Or ROI, return on investment, could be a macro keystone metric for paid ads. Or for the entire business, profit. So profit is the main macro keystone metric. The profit margin and how much you make. Another example could be the sales conversion rate to measure the effectiveness of this entire process. So you see the point. So if there's an issue with the business, here's how you define it. You start by knowing your KPIs, and then you assess the macro keystone metrics. And if one of them is out of KPI, then you go to the secondary metric. So like if you've got a problem, and if something in your business isn't working and you're bottlenecked somewhere, you're obviously gonna be bottlenecked somewhere if it's not working, you're not making profit. Well, you get your KPIs up, you look at the macro keystone metrics, you find the one that's out of KPI, and then what you do is you have to understand that macro keystone metrics are basically an aggregate of lots of micro keystones or lots of micro metrics. So for example, if I'm looking at the appointment booking rate of a cold loom system, then I might include open rate, I might include loom view rate, and I might include the positive reply rate, I might include the loom watch rate and how much percentage of the loom people have watched to get an aggregate of the overall appointment booking rate. And so end keystone metrics, these big boy metrics, are comprised of lots of little metrics that must all be in tow. And so if there's a problem with one of the big metrics, usually it's just a question of fixing one of the little metrics downstream of it, which is significantly easier to do. So what we want to do if your big one is out of KPI is you go to the secondary metric, which is the metric to the left of the metric. And I'm going to explain this and visualize it in a second because it's very, very abstract. Step 3 is you work downstream to the tertiary, quaternary, etc. metrics until you find the problem. So let's visualize this. Let's actually give you a visual. So literally this is exactly how I think about metrics. It's how I visualize them. It's how I define bottlenecks. And I've done this every single time I've had a problem in my business. So what we can see here is a little key. So the star represents a pipe that's performing inside of KPI. So a system inside of the business that's within key performance indicator. The warning sign represents that a pipe is out of KPI. The blue line that flows through represents a healthy throughput volume. The red line which flows through represents an unhealthy throughput volume, so a constriction. This arrow refers to metrics being upstream, and this arrow refers to metrics being downstream. So pipe A is downstream of pipe G in the same way that pipe F is upstream of pipe B. And so when you're analyzing the systems of a metric, they work on a line. When you're analyzing the metrics of a system, they work on a line like this. And we have the keystone. I've got 2 diagrams to represent that. The keystone metric is the primary metric. This is the first metric that we're looking at to diagnose a problem. And these are the big boys: the profit margin, the appointment booking rate, the cost per strategy session, the sales conversion rate. This is the big boy metric, okay? And then usually the big boy metric, the macro keystone metric, is gonna be upstream of secondary, tertiary, quaternary, quinary, centenary, and septenary metrics. Now there's not always 7, or 6 other metrics next to the primary one. Sometimes there's just 1 or 2. But in this example, you can see there's a lot of upstream metrics or a lot of downstream metrics that could be affecting this one that's upstream. So pipe G and the conversion rate of pipe G, which is the one that we care about, is upstream to 6 other metrics. And if all these 6 metrics are inside of KPI, then we'll find that pipe G is absolutely fine and flowing. But if pipe G isn't fine and isn't flowing, it means that downstream of it somewhere we have a bottleneck. So sometimes it's where it gets confusing, because pipe F here we can see is inside of KPI because it's got a star above it, but there's an unhealthy throughput volume. So how is it that a pipe that's inside of KPI can have unhealthy throughput volume? Because sometimes a pipe can convert just fine and be within KPI just to have a volume constraint from downstream bottlenecks. So this is fine. Pipe F is absolutely fine. We don't need to touch pipe F. But because pipe E and pipe D are out of KPI, the throughput has already been restricted. So not enough value can flow through pipe F for us to consider it working, but it's working, if that makes sense. It's within KPI, but not enough value is flowing through, which means the problem doesn't lie with pipe F, but it lies with pipe E. And because pipe E isn't in KPI, we're going to go to pipe D, and because pipe D is not in KPI, we're going to look at pipe C. But with pipe C, we can see it's in KPI. So now we know the problem is definitely with pipe D. So we'll fix pipe D first, and then we'll let the value flow, and then we'll see if that fixes pipe E. If it doesn't, then we fix pipe E, and then it should flow fine through pipe F because this is within KPI, and then pipe G should in theory be fixed. So this is how we diagnose and fix metrics, is we see them as pipelines that are upstream and downstream of each other. And we start with the keystone and we work our way backwards. So, you know, if this was like ROI on ads, this could be cost per strategy session. And then this could be, you know, like cost per appointment. And this could be cost per lead. And then this could be cost per like opt-in. Or that would be a lead, I suppose. But this could be cost per click. And then this could be like cost per view. And then this could be the cost per 1,000 impressions. So you see my point, like cost, like the overall ROI of an ad campaign will be fundamentally influenced by how much it costs to get an appointment, or how much it costs to get a client, and how much it costs to get an appointment, because to get a client, we have to get an appointment. And then to get an appointment, we have to get a lead. So how much does it cost us to get a lead? And then how much is it going to cost us to get a click? Then how much is it costing us to get a view on the ad? And then how much is it costing us to get the impressions? Like a view is obviously on YouTube. So that's obviously like an abstract idea, hopefully made somewhat concrete. You need to understand how to do this, because if you're going to be building acquisition systems and you don't know how to do this, you're kind of in trouble. But you always work your way backwards and downstream. I'm going to encourage you to just rewatch that last 5 minutes again, just to solidify and draw that point home, because it's very important you understand. So go and do that now. So yeah, I've kind of given you the example here. So pipe G, obviously keystone metric, it's at KPI. Let's head downstream to find the issue. So, you know, pipe G is out. So we're looking at pipe F. Pipe F is within KPI, but still has poor throughput. A pipe can display unhealthy throughput, but still be in KPI. This means the conversion mechanism works and is within KPI, but its throughput is bottlenecked from pipe downstream. We'll need to confirm if volume, in brackets data, has flowed through here to know whether or not this measurement has validity. So that's pipe F. So, you know, then we're going to move on to pipe E, because we can, you know, the issue is still downstream. And we're going to look at pipe E. And we're going to basically be like, okay, well, this is out of KPI. We need to fix this if there's enough volume to conclude this conversion rate is accurate. This is an important thing here, because in pipe E, not much value has flowed through this thing because pipe D is bottlenecked. So whilst it says here that pipe E is out of KPI, we need to be certain that we've had enough data flowing through to know that that conclusion is valid. And the same thing is true for pipe F. So be very careful when deciding on whether or not a pipe is within KPI when you don't have much data to play with because of further downstream constrictions. Before we claim it as a bottleneck, we'll need to confirm it has the data, okay? Now, we also need to check further downstream to see if it's the source of the issue, because if we don't fix the source of the issue, then throughput's not going to flow. So like here, if we just fix pipe E, it doesn't really matter because pipe D is the problem at the source. So you're always going to the source of the problem and then working your way backwards from there once you fix the first one. So pipe D is the same thing. We need to fix pipe D. And then pipe C, B, and A, these are all within KPI. Volume is satisfactory for the inputs, So we know the issue lies with pipe D. So once again, to iterate this point with ads, pipe A could be cost per impression, cost per 1,000 impressions, which is fine on YouTube ads. Pipe B could be how much it's costing us to get a view, which is when an ad is viewed for more than 5 seconds on YouTube, which is in KPI. Pipe C could be how much it's costing us to actually get a click, which would indicate to us that this is in KPI. This is fine. So we know that everything up to getting people to click is within KPI. And then pipe D is where it massively falls off. So the click is fine, the view is fine, the impressions are fine, we're spending well on ads. The issue lies here. Now what happens from going from a click to a opt-in is obviously going to be the funnel. It's the initial landing page of the funnel. So we're going to make some amendments and some adjustments to the landing page because this is where the problem lies. It's pipe D. So we're going to come in, we're going to fix the funnel, we're going to try new things, we're going to experiment, we're going to remove things, we're going to add things, we're going to use knowledge or external opinions to improve this. And then by doing that, hopefully we fix pipe D and then value flows. And then we'll see if pipe E is still a problem. And if we can validate that this is out of KPI, we'll fix this next. If we can't validate it, we'll wait and see. Because then if pipe D is flowing and pipe D works just fine, then we know we've fixed the opt-in page. But then if pipe E isn't working and pipe E isn't flowing, then we know that, well, it's the VSL. Because the thing that comes after the opt-in page is the VSL. And so if that's not working, then we have to fix that and change that. And then once we fix that, if pipe F is within KPI, then we're going to get the appointments. And then if pipe G is still out of KPI, we know it's going from appointment to sale. And then it's the sales system. And then we have to drill into the entire sales system. So that is how you manage metrics. I know that it's a little complicated and weird, but that's how you have to think about it. Okay? Downstream, upstream. So I've actually got my ad metrics here just to share them with you and show you. Just an important thing on the validity. So conversion rates and measurements upstream of the original bottleneck can only be deemed accurate or valid if enough volume has flown through. So I've already explained this to you, right? We have to be very careful determining whether or not a pipe's within KPI when not much volume's flowing through because there's not enough data to actually make a point. Like if I said like, oh, pipe E is out of KPI, and let's say that pipe E is the measurement of leads into appointments. Well, the problem with that is like if I've only got like 10 leads, I don't really have enough data to know if that's like a thing. It's not there's no regression to the mean there. There's not enough data to decide. You have to make sure you've got a large enough data set to make an accurate decision. So I don't. So I wouldn't call that. So, you know, I'm just giving that example there, as you can see. So here's the thing. Here's a very important rule in systems thinking and in throughput thinking. If the end metric, if the keystone macro metric is within KPI, then you don't fuck with it. Okay? Very important lesson, and I will repeat that lesson. If the end metric, if the keystone, macro keystone metric is within KPI, do not fuck with the system. So here's an example of our 2023 ad spend data. So this was before we scaled. You know, you can see we spent like $489,000 on ads in 2023. We missed a couple of months at the start because we didn't start until April. But you can see how much we spent here. And you can see our view rate on our ads, you know, is 5.6%. You can see the impressions and stuff. You can see the cost per mile. You can see the cost per strategy session, cost per call. Now, what we can see here on the far right-hand side, because what we're looking at, remember how it works? Like the most important metrics at the end, and I say most important, like the main metric that measures the entirety of the system is at the end, and the one that measures it the least is at the front. Like this is how a spreadsheet works, because we track the impressions, which is the first thing to track here, and we track the cost per call here, which is the last thing to track. And so what we can see on this spreadsheet, and this is what I used to do, is I can see here that my average cost per strategy session here is $149. So this system is within KPI, because if you remember from the finding asymmetries exercise, we only need a $200 cost per strategy session to scale. So I know that $149 is absolutely fine. What this means, because this is a measurement of the entire system, because it is the macro keystone metric, is that this whole thing's within KPI. Now, some idiot might come along and look at these metrics and think, oh, but your landing page conversion rate is out of KPI. Because, you know, ads have their own unique KPIs, and we'll talk about this when you get to the paid systems modules. And you might think like, oh, well, 6% is no good. You have to change the funnel. But the thing is I'm like, you can see here that the landing page conversion rate is only 6%. You know, and this isn't good. This is out of KPI. You want like a 15% landing page conversion rate, or 10% really. We're like we're way off the mark. However, like the problem with this, with changing this, is that the macro keystone metrics in KPI, and that's all that matters. Metrics are non-linear affairs. This means that improving one metric can be at the detriment of another. You don't want to over-optimize, because if the macro keystone metric, in this case, CPSS, is within KPI, do not fuck with it. Because it's riskier for me to come in here and mess with the landing page, because the landing page is contributing to the CPSS. So if I come in here and change around the landing page and stuff, I could completely botch my cost per strategy session. And you might be like, well, how the hell would that happen? Like I could, like Sam Evans famously like 2x'd his landing page conversion rate, like literally doubled his landing page conversion rate, but in the same tick, doubled his cost per call. It's not a joke. Like there's so many examples of very prominent marketers making this mistake. And I think Sam did that once and learned his lesson. Like, you know, there's very common examples of very famous marketers doing this where they screw with even though the macro things in KPI, everything's flowing, they start screwing with it. Like if you want to get more out of a system that's already working, instead of screwing around with it and trying to make it more efficient or optimizing it, just flow more volume through it. Like it's way riskier to fuck with an existing system that already works in the hopes you might optimize it further when you could have the complete opposite effect and usually will. It's way riskier to do that than it is just to increase the volume. If you want more from a working system, just flow more volume through it. Don't start messing around with it. This is the lesson. If it's within KPI, don't fuck with it. Okay? You just leave it and you push more volume through it if you want more from it. Because at this point, I can print money. I can put $1 into this machine and get $3 to $4 out every single time. And so I'm just going to keep spending my dollars on that. I'm not going to mess around with it. I'm not going to try and over-optimize it, because by over-optimizing it, sure, I could, maybe increase my ROAS by 20%, but I could just as likely decrease my ROAS by 20%. It's not worth the risk. Optimization beyond KPI can lead to efficiency, but often, just as often, leads to destruction. Okay? So when trying to fix your throughput, the best practice is to start at the end and work your way backwards from there. This is the easiest way to identify the root cause of the problem. Just because value isn't flowing through a pipe, it doesn't mean that that pipe is a bottleneck. It could be another pipe downstream of the one you're looking at. KPI determines bottleneck. A lot of time, if the pipe is blocked downstream, you won't have the volume of inputs into the pipe you're checking to determine if it's in KPI. So let's visualize this for a second. So, here's an example below. So the pipes in the circle containing the confirm call process seem to be blocked. You can see that here. And throughput is not flowing properly. There's no throughput going through these. So, someone looking at this might think, oh God, my call confirmation process is bottlenecked. My show rate is really low and, I'm kind of screwed, right? There's no volume going through these things. So my confirm call process is a problem. They wouldn't track the show rate because we're not looking at it. The metrics that track this part of the pipe may well be within KPI, but there is still a serious blockage of value. So downstream of this, we could still have a show rate that's absolutely fine. The system for show rates could be bang on. Like you might have like a 70% show rate, even though there's no throughput through these, in theory. If the metrics for this part of the pipe are within KPI, then we know that the issue is further downstream, and we need to keep working backwards. Further inspection would reveal the issue lies with the opt-in. So the point I'm making here is, you can see this part of the system, right? We're going offer, click opt-in. And at opt-in, this is where we're really bottlenecked, where the landing page isn't working properly. And if the landing page isn't working properly, it means we're going to have a serious restriction or a serious lack of volume going through the rest of the pipeline. And that lack of volume is eventually going to get to the confirm call process. And it's going to demonstrate to us we're not getting many people going through. We're not sending many Calendly reminders. We're not sending many introduction emails. But this doesn't mean that this show rate system is going to be broken. The show rate system could be absolutely fine. A lack of volume through a set of pipes as a consequence of a downstream issue does not confirm that there will be an upstream issue. I'm going to say that again. A lack of volume of throughput through a section of pipes that is as a result of a consequence of pipes downstream does not mean there will be a conversion issue upstream. Okay? And I told you this. I told you at the start of the video, this gets complicated and it gets abstract and it gets weird. And like I said, this video was originally made for people who are already making 50 to 100 grand a month and want to get to $1 million a month. This is not a simple concept to grasp. It's simple, but it's difficult. Like this is not like a easy run of your mill. Hey, go and make a loom system. This is very difficult stuff to gauge and practice and get the hang of. And it's okay if you're not 100% understanding it right now. And it's okay if you're scratching your head like, what the hell did he just say? Because part of me wants to tell you that you don't have to worry too much about this stuff until you get to later on, but you do, because I'm going to educate you on the hard stuff now so that when you get to the stuff later on, it'll be easy. But don't worry if that doesn't make total sense to you right now. Okay, because you're going to rewatch this video when you come to Consultant Nirvana, when you've got more business experience, and you'll be more successful then. So, how do we fix the bottlenecks? So there's a couple of key questions that stand out here. How do we build systems that achieve KPI? And once they're built, how do we ensure KPI consistency? And if we fall out of KPI, how do we get back to KPI? Well, to do that, we have to understand systems. So these are the three key questions now. Systems and diagnosis. So we're just going to do a quick recap from Morgan's acquisition systems theory. Like, what is a system? You should already know this. Pretty simple, right? We have the inputs, which is the raw materials put into a system. We have the processes, which are the raw materials processed using processes, obviously. We have the output, which is the end result of processing coming out. Then we have the feedback, which is using the result of processing to improve inputs, or the data, basically. So, or a flywheel or a feedback loop, where you take the money to get more attention, for example. And then you have the environment, which is the environment in which the system operates. So it's a pretty simple, loop. Input, process, output, feedback, environment. So why are we understanding this? We need to understand systems if we want to understand how to build them to achieve KPIs. Because if you want to achieve a key performance indicator consistently, you need it to be repeatable, you need it to be sustainable, maintainable, predictable, right? How do we do that? We build systems. Systems achieve consistency. And so you might hit KPI one day, but if you're not hitting it the next, well, that's because you don't have a system. So we need to have systems. So question one was the following. How do we build systems that achieve KPI? Well, the simple answer is very straightforward. You just follow the instructions in the program. Now, the complex answer is to isolate process variables, in brackets stimuli, and use the scientific method to shuffle and adjust variables to find a winning combination that gives ascent to KPI. Now, the complex answer is another 3-hour video in and of itself and is covered in iterative Darwinian acquisition. So if I wanted to include how to do this in this video, then this video would be 6 to 7 hours long. So instead, I've already done it and I've made iterative Darwinian acquisition. Depending on where I put this in acquisition genesis, you may or may not have already watched this. You might have already watched this, right? So, how do we build a system that achieves KPI? Well, it's just finding the variables, it's finding the processes that work and putting them in place. And to do that, we've got the program and we've also got iterative Darwinian acquisition. It's like the whole biology thing, shuffling variables. It should have been explained to you or will be explained to you. So the second question is, once we've built a system, how do we ensure KPI consistency? Once it's built, how do we make sure it stays there? Well, the simple answer is just never fuck with it. If it works, just leave it alone. But the complex answer is to watch it like a hawk and always introduce minor variations as tests, but not on the main system to combat entropy. So once again, the answer for consistency is iterative Darwinian acquisition, where we're combating entropy and we're constantly testing new things and we're constantly introducing new things, not to the main system, but to like a Petri dish system where we're testing something separately. Now, let's get excited because we're talking about bottlenecks here and we're talking about how to fix systems. And you're going to need to do this in the future, so I'm going to tell you now. So question 3 is the main one. If we fall out of KPI, because look, I'm telling you, question 1's easy to do. You just go through the program and you follow the scientific method. Pretty simple. Question 2, on the other hand, is once again very simple, because it's just don't mess with it and introduce variation as frequently as you can. Question 3 is the difficult one. If we fall out of KPI, which means that we get bottlenecked. So if our system is no longer performing within KPI, then how do we fix it to get back to KPI? So say, for example, that we have a sales system or we have a sales team, 10 sales reps that are all doing the same sales script. And let's say that those sales reps, in 3 months in a row, they massively fall out of KPI. Well, now we have a bottleneck in the system. Now if we come up to the pipeline, we're struggling at the conversion stage. We're not getting the payments over the line, or we're not handling the objections. So there's going to be less value and we're going to make less money. So, if that's the problem, then the sales system is out of KPI. So we need to fix it. So how do we fix these things? How do we diagnose them, and how do we come to terms with this? So here's a harsh fact of life. Systems are how we achieve consistency. Basically, it's just doing the same thing with the same variables over and over again, repeating the same flow. However, systems can break, and they do break. But why? Well, if you're repeating the same winning formula, over and over again with proven processes, why does a system break? Have you ever thought about this before? If you find let's just take cold looms, for example, and you're running a cold email system and it works for a year and then suddenly it stops working. What the hell? You've been doing the same thing. The whole phrase, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, sometimes sanity in business is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result if you're doing something that works. So why is it that they can break if you're doing the same thing and all the variables are kept the same? Well, it's because environments change. Okay? Systems are adapted to their environment. If the environment changes, then they must change. And if they don't, then they die, just like in nature. So the one variable, the one real variable that's always changing is the environment. The system operates in an environment, and the environment often has more of an effect on the system than the quality of the inputs, the quality of the processes, or the intensity of the feedback. The environment determines the thing in its entirety. And so if you've ever wondered why systems just randomly break, it's because they're not keeping up with a change in environment. Now, I've actually got a playbook for you here for fixing a broken system. So there's really 4 methods of diagnosis, and you have to do them in order. So I'm about to give you my entire playbook for fixing a system. So let's say that, I'm running, like I said, a sales team of 10 people, which I do. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, their conversion rate all just drops. Well, what I've got is I've got a 4-step process, or I've got 4 methods for diagnosing the problem to understand why the problem has happened. And typically, if you're able to diagnose something, it's so easy to fix. It's if you go to a doctor and you've got a really bad disease and they diagnose it accurately and properly, it's often you're just maybe 5 days of antibiotics away from having that disease completely eradicated. But if the diagnosis is inaccurate, then you're screwed. It's kind of if you had I knew someone once who had skin cancer, and they had, I think it was melanoma. And it wasn't bad melanoma, it was just they were at the first stage of the cancer. And that's, from my understanding, from what my friend was telling me, it's possible to treat that with minor surgery, or a minor process. And so my friend, they had some problems with their skin, so they went to the doctor, and I think it's melanoma that's skin. Forgive me if it's not, but my education here is not that strong. And they went to the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed them with stage 1 skin cancer. And that was very fortunate that the diagnosis was accurate, because the doctor could have diagnosed them with something else, like eczema or something bad, right? Something else. And so the doctor said, okay, well, it's a very simple procedure. Don't panic. We've done this thousands of times before. Book yourself in for 2 weeks' time, and we'll remove the mole or skin tag or whatever it is, and then we'll do an X-ray to make sure it's all gone, and then you'll be fine. And that is the importance of an accurate diagnosis. Solving a problem, I honestly promise you that solving a problem is maybe 5% of the difficulty. Actually figuring out how to solve it is really easy. Once you have the problem exposed and it's very apparent what the issue actually is, it's extremely easy to solve. Diagnosis is the key, just as it is in medicine. Oh, I've got a fever, and I've got a temperature and a headache, and I can't sleep properly, and I keep vomiting, blah, blah, blah. Okay, quick blood test, 12 hours elapses. Oh, look, you've got this parasite. Take this pill once and the parasite will be gone forever. The solution is easy. The diagnosis is the hard part. That's where the labor-intensive part. So I've got 4 methods of diagnosis for a system. Now, before you begin the diagnosis process, you need to make sure that you have a large enough data set to determine that the KPI you're measuring has validity. So obviously, if your system breaks in 2 days, you're not getting results. That doesn't mean the system's broken. because there's no regression to the mean. So regression to the mean states that averages don't present themselves in small data sets. And so you need to make sure that you've got a significant sum of data before you actually conclude the system's broken. Like for example, if I have one sales rep and yesterday he makes no sales, that doesn't mean that he's a bad sales rep or that his system's broken. It just means that he went one day without sales, because tomorrow he could get 4 deals and then he could go like 3 days with no deals and then have one day where he gets 3. Like, you have to learn to measure metrics in weeks and months, not days. So yeah, let's just get rid of that. Okay. So the first thing, there's 4 methods of diagnosis, and you want to go through them in order, because typically, we're going to go through them in order of ease to fix, so to speak. So we want to start with the easy fixes, because if we can define it and easily fix it real fast, then it's pretty simple. So diagnosis number 1 is you ask yourself this: are there any temporary anomalous issues? Anomalous means anomaly, so like random out of nowhere issues that don't really happen that often. Are there any temporary anomalous issues that you can't fix but will fix themselves over time? If so, just sit it out and wait. And this is usually the first problem with a system. It's usually the first thing you can diagnose. By default, Bo and I will give any broken system 1 week to 1 month to see if the problem goes away on its own. So, if you have like a week where like something doesn't work properly, the first thing you should ask yourself is, okay, is there any anomalies? Like a primary example of this could be people who if you're doing cold calls and you start cold calling, I can famously tell you that August for any cold outreach system or method is typically the slowest and the worst. And a lot of people see their metrics massively dip for emails, DMs, and cold calling in August. Why? Because most business owners are on holiday, right? It's the main holiday month, especially in the US and the UK. And so you might think, oh my God, it's the second week of August and I've had half the appointments of usual. But if you actually took a second to think critically, you'd be like, oh, there's an anomaly here. It's just the fact that no one's actually in the office. And I can give you an example in Imperium acquisition. So a time that we used diagnosis number 1. So we once had a week where our entire sales team conversion rate just randomly halved. Like a week where we got half the deals we usually do. Without panicking, we performed diagnosis number 1. We asked ourselves the question, are there any sudden temporary anomalous changes? And it turned out there were temporary issues for 7 of our 10 reps. So 3 of our 10 reps had the flu. 2 of our 10 reps had just lost a loved one. Very unfortunate. 1 of them had just moved house, and 1 of them had a baby that week. So these are just temporary issues that will go away. This person will settle in. This person will, get over the new baby fever. These people will obviously grieve, and it's terrible, but eventually they'll, be back to performing. And these people will be better in like a week. So within a couple of weeks, everyone was back to normal. And what could have been a disaster if we started to mess around with it, because this is why you do diagnosis number 1 first, because a lot of people would start changing the script, and then they're gonna fire people and start messing stuff around and changing the price and all this crap. But the first thing you do is you just give it time, and then you see if there's anything temporary that just the environment is just giving you a temporary little piece of shit, basically. The environment's dude, 7 of your reps are just sick this week. Sorry, but that's just how it goes. They'll be fine in a week. Out of your control, no need to panic, just a temporary problem. That's the first thing you do. It's the most rational thing to do to diagnose why you're out of KPI, and if it's the case, you just sit and wait. Diagnosis number 2 is to assess the input quality. So if the KPIs have randomly changed and it's not because of some temporary issue, then the next place you look is for the inputs. Has the quality of the inputs changed or got worse? If so, this is likely the issue, and all you have to do is fix the inputs. So I can give you an example here. Recently, 3 months ago, I made the transition on YouTube from making specific videos for SMMA and coaching owners, coaching consultants, to more broad make money online YouTube videos. Right? 3 months ago, I did that. And the first month that we did that, obviously 30% of our appointments were coming from YouTube organic. And, suddenly we started getting less deals and less cash, and we kind of dropped by 15 to 20% over a month. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, a third of our inputs are just worse, because now we were getting people booking who want to make money online who don't have a business. Before we were getting people who already had businesses and, wanted to grow. And now we were getting people who want to make money online and want to start, and they have less money and they're not as much of a fit for our program. And so that's an example of that time. Now, I didn't fix the inputs because I've got a wider goal in mind for my brand and for the YouTube channel. It's like there's a bigger picture than just like temporary inputs. But we basically just changed the Calendly forms to qualify people better, and that fixed the problem. So there's another example here. Early days when we were running our Loom system to get clients, over the course of a month, our appointment booking rate just tanked. We couldn't find any issues in number 1, so we turned to number 2. It turned out that our lead sourcer was being lazy and was literally just selling us old leads that he'd already reached out to, that he'd already sourced from. So our lead sourcer was just like reselling us old lists, and we were just too stupid to notice for a month. And then it also happened again a couple of months later when someone started sourcing leads that couldn't even speak English. Like he was sourcing leads from like Asia and like Mexico and stuff. Like not that people there can't speak English, like I know that a lot of them can, but it was just like, it was so apparent what the problem was. And then, how do we come back in KPI? We just fix the inputs. It's just literally that simple. So that's the second thing you do. If it's not temporary issue, you look at the inputs. And then we went to diagnosis number 3. So if it's not the inputs and it's not temporary, this is where it can get a little bit more difficult, because you want to assess process variables. You want to isolate process variables, which is every single thing that influences the conversion of an input into an output, and then ask yourself the question, have you changed a part of the process suddenly, or have you experienced process drift, whereby lots of tiny micro changes are made to a part of the process where you gradually have drifted away from what works? So really, like if the inputs are the same, and if there's no temporary issues, the problem is probably down, and you've already been in KPI before, you've already got a process that works, and then suddenly you're not in KPI. The chances are it might just be because you changed the process. And a lot of the time, you can change the process without even realizing it with something called process drift. So this is called frog in boiling water syndrome. So this is a mental model. If you put a frog in boiling water, which is sudden change, then it will recognize the boiling water and it will jump out. However, if you put a frog in cold water and slowly bring that thing to the boil, the frog won't notice and will gradually cook. Now, this isn't scientifically accurate, but it explains how contrast works. Extreme change is noticeable, but gradual isn't. If this has happened, go back to what was working and keep a watchful eye on your process. So let me actually give you a concrete example. So we once had an issue where our setting team, the setting team-wide positive reply rate had been slowly trending down over 3 months. Diagnosis number 1 and 2 revealed no issues, no temporary weird things happening, and the lead source was consistent. ABR was actually in KPI, but had heavy volume restriction. So I knew the problem was with the positive reply rate. I knew the problem was with the original video they were sending out, because that's the thing that drives positive reply rate. So I start by isolating the variables that cause positive reply rate. And in this case, it was obviously the profile of the setters, which was the same, so it wasn't that. And the second thing I looked at was the introduction video that setters are sending. And for context, we have DM Sorcery in the program, which is a system you can use to book appointments through cold DMs that relies on sending an initial cold video, like a 20-second video to someone. And we have the same script we use every time. And for some reason, that thing just had stopped working. So trying diagnosis number 3, I isolated the process that causes positive reply rate, which is the entry video. Remember, you start by isolating. Never assume you know what it is, just isolate. And I then compared this process, the setters were using at the time, to the one they were told to use by me at the start. And what had happened is the video that I told them to use at the start was totally different to the one they were using now. I looked through messages over the last 3 months from the setters, and I found that the setters were just drifting away from the thing that worked at the start. And human beings do this. So we addressed it, fixed it, and got back to the KPI, and we were literally back to PRR KPI within 24 hours of fixing the process. So in the beginning, I told the setters to use this video, gave them the script. And the setters basically had done like the same video like 1,000 times each. And over the course of doing it 1,000 times each, they slowly just started to erode away at the integrity of the original process. And they started introducing random crap and thinking that they knew something that was going to work better, and testing stuff and trying stuff. So they just started, after 3 months of just like slow incremental changes every day, even in tone or in words, it just wasn't working anymore. They were just like completely off the mark. The same thing happened with our sales team. We had like a gradual decline in sales performance over like 6 months. And then I listened to some of the calls the guys were doing. I was like, when the hell did I teach you this? Like, when did I teach you to pitch the price like this or handle objections like this? And then they're like, I don't know. I don't think you did. And I'm like, well, why are you doing it like this? They're like, I don't know. Like, people just do shit and they just randomly drift over time away from what works. They don't mean to. It's not intentional, but it's just like ego and random shit gets in the way. And so this is usually the third thing that's happened, is either you've randomly changed the process suddenly, or usually more likely you've had a gradual change in process. So just bear that in mind and watch out for that. Now, diagnosis number 4 is a little bit scarier. If it's not a temporary thing that the environment's thrown up that you can't fix and just wait out, and if it's not the input change, and if it's not process drift, then it must be number 4. Now, I want you to be super careful here, because the chances are 99% of the time, it's going to be number 1, number 2, or number 3. So if you've done number 1 or number 2 or number 3, sit on that for a good day or two. It's very, very unlikely that you need to do diagnosis number 4, because it's almost always 1, 2, or 3. Almost always. Very, very rarely is it number 4. So if you come to number 4, I want you to just redo number 1, 2, and 3 for a couple of days before you actually think you need to do this. So looking at the feedback from the system, past and present, and using your understanding of your niche from recent sales calls and new clients, you have to try to figure out what might have changed about the environment the system operates in. So the environment in any case is going to be the market. It's the aggregation of all the humans and all the interactions between those humans inside of your niche. Now, here's the thing. Changes in your environment or in your market can happen suddenly or gradually. If you've done number 1, number 2, and number 3 properly, and I mean properly, because, really, when systems break 95% of the time, it's going to be because of 1, 2, or 3, then what you need to do is you need to basically recognize that the only answer can be number 4. If it's not temporary change, if it's not inputs, if it's not process change, either gradual or sudden, then it's environmental change. Once you know what's changed, you adjust the processes accordingly using the scientific method, or by finding people that have working processes and copying them. So you just need to readapt the system. Because I can tell you now, if you use like a system for like 12 months and you don't update it, you're probably going to, like your system will gradually drift away from KPI, because the environment's going to change. And if your system doesn't change with the environment and doesn't readapt to it constantly, then it's not going to work. It's going to die. It's kind of like human beings. Like, we are the most adapted species on Earth. But, tomorrow, if global temperatures like rose by 20 degrees, we would all die. Our bodies wouldn't be able to adapt quick enough. And if by some miracle there was a genetic mutation for 0.001% of the population where people could register an increase in 20 degrees, then those people would all survive. And because they're adapted, they'd go on to reproduce, and that would be the new human race. So, you get the point. So I'll give you an example of gradual change in Imperium. So we actually experienced this, like a decrease in metrics over like the course of a year. So in 2021, 75% of new agencies starting were e-com agencies. So this is when we just helped agency owners. And all the agency owners that were starting e-com agencies. Now, we tailored our mass messaging for beginners to this. Over time, our messaging became a lot less effective and we fell out of KPI. Number 1, number 2, and number 3 didn't tell us anything. Upon inspection of number 4, we realized that the trend is dying and that people don't start e-com agencies anymore. They start lead gen agencies. So in like 2022, whatever, we had to change our process accordingly and fix the issue, because now no one starts an e-com agency. It's very rare. But in 2021, like 3 out of 4 agency owners were starting e-com agencies. So another example of a sudden change in environment. So this is a gradual change in environment that you don't really notice, but you have to eventually check. This is sudden. So this was in before Imperium. We're working with Jim selling a marketing program through Northflow Consulting. Our refund rate skyrockets for 4 weeks straight. We just, out of nowhere, like every single client's asking for a refund. We go from having no refund requests to 70% asking for their money back. Without even having to do 1, 2, or 3, we know it's a number 4 issue. Because sudden shit like that doesn't just happen. It's going to be number 4. And the issue was that the USA had just locked down all gyms due to COVID-19. So pretty much every single gym in the US was just randomly mandated to shut by the government. And because of that, they had no cash flow, no bursaries, no help from the state, no help from the government, and they wanted their money back that they gave to us, just all of them. So like we were like, oh, that explains why that metric's just gone way out of KPI. You go from like a 0.5% refund rate to a 75% refund rate in like 4 weeks. It's probably the environment, right? So recap, if a system is broken, i.e. if a metric is out of KPI, then we perform the following diagnoses. We start by asking if there's any temporary changes that will go away on their own. If there are, we leave them. Then we see if there's any change of input that reduce the input quality. If there is, then we fix the input and we see if that fixes it. If it's none of these things, then we ask if there's any gradual or sudden changes in process. And if that's not the case, well, then we're looking at the macro environmental changes that require adaptability. 90% of problem solving is accurate diagnosis. Scale starts with diagnosis, and if you get a little bit wrong, you can't go any further. That's why I've dedicated the first 26 pages of this PDF to a Google Doc, and I've spent 2 weeks of my life putting this thing together to give you the best tools to accurately diagnose problems. The more accurate the diagnosis, the easier it is to fix. The good news is you don't have to come up with the fixes because they're all found in the program. So what you can see up until this point is I've really built on your stack of knowledge here. You know, we've talked about how to like focus. We've talked about leverage and asymmetry and what to focus on. And once we've defined these asymmetries, I've actually walked you through like how to think about the flow of value through your business and then how that all relates to key performance indicators, which of course are the asymmetries. We've looked at visualizing this thing as a pipe, and then we've basically explained that like if you want to make money, you need value to flow through this pipe. If value isn't flowing through this pipe, it means that a pipe is bottlenecked at some point. If a pipe is bottlenecked at some point, it means that you're out of KPI. And if you're out of KPI, then you can do this exercise. And once you've done this exercise, now you can define, like with an accurate diagnosis process, as to what's happening and what's going wrong. And if you've understood all of this, and you followed through with me here for the last, whatever it's been, like 3.5 hours or whatever it's been, then you now know how to think. This is Apocalyptic Imperial Scale. But before we finish, I'm going to go through economics quickly. This is like a side model. It's not as like significant, but it's just a nice little way to round off the video. So economics is obviously like a term used to describe the, you know, creation and transfer of wealth across a market. But in this instance, economics in this business context that we're operating in is basically ways to manage, understand, and control your system. So you need to think of your business like a machine, and machines have controls. And what we can do in business is we can define these controls, and then we know what levers to pull and what buttons to press to make the thing do what we want. So let's visualize this by imagining that you have a plane. Let's just say this is your system. Your system is your plane, because we've been talking about your system and up here. In order to operate the system like a plane, then you need a steering wheel. You need thrusts, you need brake. You need a bunch of buttons to press and levers to pull so you can make the plane do what you want to do. These are called controls. So systems and machines have controls. The system also needs fuel. The plane needs jet fuel to run. It needs reserves to make the plane go. The plane also needs a dashboard to display all the metrics. Because, you know, when you're using these controls and burning the fuel, you need a dashboard to know, like, if the controls are doing what they should be doing, what controls you should use. You're going to basically judge that based on the dashboard, and also how much fuel you've got left. You need to be able to see key metrics in the plane, such as how high up you are, tank fuel level, wind pressure, miles per hour, etc. Without metrics, we don't really know what we're doing. We don't know how much fuel we need and what levers we need to pull. Now, instead of imagining like a machine, like a plane, imagine your business. So we've got controls, reserves, and dashboard. This is the economics of a business, basically. So controls are what controls you have at your disposal to get what you want. So these are literally like, imagine your business, you're sat in a cockpit, and you can operate the business by pulling controls and pushing levers. For example, with my business, I can increase the ad spend, or I can allocate profit to a specific project, or I can get my sales manager to do a specific thing, or I can have my YouTube organic channel go in a certain direction, or I can pull the lever on the mastermind and increase the amount of mastermind seats that I want to host, or I can suddenly change from school to something else. Like, it's everything that you can physically or digitally move around in your business to get better results. For example, I could send my operations manager on a course to get better at operations. Like, you're controlling things and moving them around to move the machine. Reserves is basically how much cash you have in the bank to fuel the damn thing. So another economic of your business, or another part of the economics of your business, is how much cash you have in the bank. Like, you know, sometimes to use controls and to, you know, manipulate them and move things around so the business does what you want, using controls uses fuel. So if you're on a plane and you want to increase the thrust, or you want to turn the Wi-Fi on, that might cost more fuel. It might cost more electricity or more stuff in the tank. Same thing in the business. If I want to move the control of increasing the ad spend by pushing that lever up to go faster in the business, that's going to cost more fuel. And so I need to know what I have in reserve so that I can see how far I can push that thing before we're going to fall out of the sky. And the last part of the economics is the dashboard. If you're in a plane or a car or you're driving any machine or operating any machine, you will have a dashboard that shows you the key metrics. And in business, you need to have a dashboard or at least a set of spreadsheets that allow you to see what's going on. Having these allows you to control your business. If you have controls, reserves, and a dashboard, you can move things around and see what's happening. You know how far you can go and what you can push without failing, and how far you can glide without any extra fuel. Like if you don't make any money for a while, like how far can you go? And then you can also see exactly what's going on. Things are steadier and calmer in your driver's seat. So a couple of rules. I'm just explaining these ideas to you just to round off and visualize like some extra abstraction around the business. But a rule for cash reserves is that your first goal in business should be to accumulate 12 months of cash reserves at all times. So obviously your main goal is finding those key performance indicators and finding those asymmetries. But you probably shouldn't try to scale until you've got some heavy cash reserves. Like you want at least 12 months of operating and personal expenses in a bank account in cash before you try and take any risks or make any moves. Doing this relieves your anxiety and terror and will help you think clearly, think long term, and remove your survival brain. Cash reserves are so important, man. Like the amount of people I know that have like successful businesses but have like 10 grand in cash and they're constantly terrified because they're spending all this stupid money on stupid things. You need to have cash reserves. And another example, as well as the reserve example, is the dashboard. Like if I pull up my bookmarks here, I can see near enough like all of my data for all my sales team here and all of the mother data and mother sheets and 2023 data as well. Then I can see all of my data for my strategies. I can see all my ads data. And if I go over to my other bookmarks, I've got a ton as well up here. So, I've got my dashboards in tow. I can see everything at a moment's notice. I've got all of my, bank accounts up here. I've got Stripe up here. I've got I've got my health data, my Walmart, like all of my dashboards are at one click. And that's pretty helpful to have. And so example for Imperium, controls, YouTube ads, YouTube organic, sales manager, ops manager, like these are things that you can use to get what you want. It's basically things you can use, like levers you can pull inside of a machine. And in reserves, in Imperium, Bo and I have like 5 years of personal and non-growth orientated operating expenses in cash reserves. So the great thing about this sort of business is if we don't we only pay sales commission and we only pay Stripe fees on money we make. So if we don't make any money, we don't pay those fees. And if we're not making money, we just turn the ad spend off. Obviously, we never do that, but you get the point. So my point here is I've got 5 to 10 years of operational and personal expenses. I could just run this business for 5 years without making any money. And I'd be able to live a perfectly comfortable life as well. And then I've obviously got my dashboard. I've got all my metrics available. So you want to have your dashboards, you want to have reserves, and you want to know what your controls are. So that, my friends, is Apocalyptic Imperial Scale. In summary, we discussed what scale is. Then we talked about the conditions of scale and the strain associated with scale. We talked about the difference between global, local, micro, macro, and fractal, and how that's how you can basically extrapolate your understanding of a couple of people onto thousands of people and how that can help you scale. We discussed the 4 steps to scale, if you remember what they are. That's good. Then we discussed the 4 disciplines, being obviously focus, throughput, systems, and economics. And we've obviously just explored those. Then we talked about focus, which is energy and time. What is focus? Macro, micro focus, Polaris star, asymmetries, 100 units of time. We talked about throughput and the barrel and the faucet, the pipeline and the bank. We talked about bottlenecks, identifying bottlenecks, fixing bottlenecks. You should know everything you need to know about bottlenecks at this point. Systems and diagnosis and economics. So that summarizes pretty much everything you need to know right now about how to actually scale a business. And I'm hoping that now that you've seen this video, you kind of see things in a bit of a different way. Especially with this diagram here, if I just pull this one up again. This thing should make it real damn clear to you as to exactly why I've explained everything I've just explained to you in this way. And if you actually listen to this stuff and you actually absorb it and you go through it again and again and again, and you embed this into your brain so deep, you will win. and you will make a lot of money. And I know that to be true because this is exactly what I did. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're finding Acquisition Genesis to be useful and helpful so far. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for watching.